Ladies and gentlemen, requesting you all to kindly be seated as we're about to begin with our brilliant event. Firstly, could we have a huge round of applause for all of you who made it on time, as the time is of the biggest asset. Could we have a big round of applause for all of you? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about content, and I feel that, and I'm sure all of you are the drivers of change in content building, creating, and content, of course, is going to keep you, in the category which is going to differentiate all of us in future. So firstly, congratulations to all the ones who are stirring the conversations today. We're looking to get inspired. We're looking to learn from one another and, of course, celebrate excellence in the room today. So I'm glad that the biggest of the minds are under one roof today at Mumbai, and we're excited to host all of you. So are you guys up for it? Mumbai, are you excited? That's the energy we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Let's begin with our fabulous event today. So very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 6th edition of the E4M Content Marketing Summit, Content Jam, the Content Marketing Gig. Well, my name is Bhavna Bhatia, in the industry for over a decade, and it's my honor to associate with the Exchange for Media E4M group on this wonderful event and be the host for today. Well, today, India has nearly 80 million content creators, including video streamers, influencers, bloggers, creators on OTT platforms, physical product creators, and essentially anyone building a community around their niche. Brands today are being built in a world where content is everywhere and everyone is aware. Ladies and gentlemen, but when does the conversation move from advertising to content? A question to ponder on. Our conference today is aiming to take you to that journey of what is next in content with the people who are paving the future, which is all of you today present here, through their expertise and, of course, a word we all relate to, collaborations. The future of content is in a flux from physical to digital and, of course, phygital to meta. The wheel keeps moving and the content is definitely reinventing itself one step at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of today's conference is the content economy, defining the new creative. Well, before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge all our partners without whose contribution this event wouldn't have been a success. Our co-gold partners being Hooper, India's #1 music licensing platform that powering brands and creators across India with 100% copyright safe music. Of course, our associate partner being Word, which is a leading influencer marketing agency in India that connects brand with influential voices on social media. Why don't we have a look at what our partners are all about? Well, let's applaud both our partners. Thank you so much for associating on this wonderful event. Well, ladies and gentlemen, to create content around this forum, our hashtag is very simple. You can see it right on the top. It's hashtag E4M Content Jam as one word. So let's get our content out of this conference. Let's tweet about it. Let's put it on social media. Let the buzz stick around the conference. Let's learn and, of course, enjoy with one another. Now, of course, on that note, I'm not going to keep you waiting any further. I would now request on the stage none other than Mr. Naval Ahuja, co-founder, Exchange for Media Group.
Thank you so much, Bhavna, and a very warm welcome and good afternoon to all of you. Very happy to see so many people have turned up to listen to what the content economy this year is going to look like. As Bhavna mentioned, this is the 6th edition of Content Jam. The digital ecosystem has been thriving in India for a good part of 15 years now. And for large corporates, brands, even SMBs, reaching out to their audiences, their cohorts through the digital platforms has become a must-have today. What brands, what corporates, companies have tried to do in the last few years is to use their own sort of content narratives, to create their own content narratives to reach out to audiences. And we have a fantastic lineup of speakers today. Thank you, Mr. Mayank Bhatwal, for being here from Aditya Birla Group. We'll start with this session and also have a eclectic list of speakers who will talk about how brands like Aditya Birla are using content, influencer, so many other aspects of what digital provides us to reach out to their customers, to retain these customers, to reach out to new ones, to create better loyalty, deeper engagement. Those of us who grew up in the television era will recall the use of what used to be known then as AFP, which is advertiser-funded programs, where brands would try and build their own narrative into programming of television channels, into the content of television channels. So in many ways, this new content economy, what we come to understand as branded content marketing is the new form of AFP, so to say, where digital narratives are being created. And what content marketing stroke branded content does is that it cuts across every platform. As users, for example, our primary usage today is on digital is across digital platforms is across 5-6 large buckets. So there are the large social media platforms, the likes of Facebook and Instagram. There is news content consumption that happens across the news content platforms. Then there is short video platforms, there is OTT, there is other digital needs that we have, from banking to buying products online to e-commerce. But one of the things that kind of goes across at least 80 to 90% of these platforms is how content is being used to push the narratives of these brands. If you leave out perhaps the UPI or the transactions we are doing, everything else has a narrative built into it, where brands are using the opportunity to sort of push their content to us. And today's conference seeks to kind of throw light on what are the new trends in the that space. Post the conference, as you all know, we have the 8th edition of the Content Marketing Awards, an initiative that has been growing significantly over the last few years, naturally, because more and more companies are using this space to kind of, as I said, push their narrative. This year, I'm told we got almost 850 entries. That's a big jump from where we were last 2 years. What we've also seen is that due to COVID, increased digital penetration has meant significantly more traction and money being spent on digital advertising. A report released by our partners, Group M, this week said 48% of money in India, advertising money, will be spent on digital advertising, and that's a huge jump. Just 10 years back, this number was what, 15%. It's 3x jump, far bigger than a lot of us anticipated, and that really only reflects the kind of lives we are leading today from adults to children. We are, surrounded by technology, surrounded by what's happening to us digital, and more brands are following that route. With that, thank you all for being here again. I look forward to all the conversations, and I look forward to also celebrating the winners in the evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ahuja. On that front, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to move ahead to our first discussion. How the BFSI sector is using marketing effectively to get millions of people to ensure their lives. A rather very interesting topic, and ladies and gentlemen, we're elated to have someone who's going to be joining us. He has a rich experience of nearly 24 years in the industry. Somebody who was responsible for setting up and launching the healthcare insurance arm of Aditya Birla Capital, also for sparking the pro-health revolution in the Indian health insurance industry. He's been a recipient of several personal and professional recognitions and has been felicitated at the annual CFO 100 Roll of Honor for the years 2012, 2013, and 2014 for his exceptional contribution to the area of corporate finance. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, as I can see the stage being all set to welcome none other than Mayank Bhatwal, CEO, Aditya Birla Health Insurance. Can we give Mr. Bhatwal a huge round of applause? Of course, joined in conversation with none other than Mr. Naval Ahuja, co-founder, Exchange for Media Group. Over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, it is now. Thank you, Bhavna. Thank you, Mr. Bhatwal, for joining us. We live in interesting times. 3-4 things are happening around us. As I mentioned at the start, the technology, the digital sort of revolution is really taking charge of all parts of our life. BFSI is a sector that has kind of been at the forefront of both taking advantage of that, digital leap, as well as being at the, forefront of innovating with products, with customer reach out. So let me start with a sort of larger, umbrella question, if I may. We've seen last few years, especially because of COVID, digital penetration as well as, awareness of health has significantly gone up. And that's provided a lot of tailwind for the sector. But as we come out of COVID, what we've seen in many other sectors, in media and advertising and many other sectors, that the kind of peak we achieved during COVID, both in terms of, digital usage, as well as in terms of, awareness of health, that is kind of plateaued off, right? What are the trends you've seen now coming out of COVID, especially in the last 6 months for, the sector that you operate in? Why don't I use this while that?
Naval, firstly, thank you for inviting me to be part of this program, and a very good afternoon to all of you. I think first let me start by just giving a disclaimer that I'm not a marketing expert, folks. So I'm someone who runs a business, so my inputs will be more from a business perspective on how I see some of these trends in the marketing area, and more importantly, the way consumers are responding to whatever you were just sharing early on. Like all other categories, our own category saw a very significant shift in the way in which consumers looked at digital during COVID time. I think clearly there was no option, right? The physical world was non-existent. And there were 2 or 3 clear trends that emerged, which actually impact our category. One is the general adoption of consumers to the digital way of being. While definitely a segment which was much more digital ready, digital native, or whatever term we give to that segment. But even the segment which used to have their own concerns about using the digital segment clearly started using it because they had no option. Let me give you an example. In the area of health, we used to have something called a doctor on call facility in our products very early on when we launched our business. No one ever used it because consumers were not comfortable. We were well ahead of time in 2016 when we brought that facility. During COVID, suddenly that became a huge hit. Why? Because digital was the way of interaction, and you couldn't have avoided that conversation interaction with the healthcare facility. The whole health area actually got a significant push of digital adoption during COVID. And you've seen recently the whole announcement of the Ayushman Bharat Digital Health Mission by the government. I think that in many ways has got accentuated by what we saw in this category. But I think more importantly, it gave us an opportunity to reach out to consumers at scale, and more importantly, at a hyper-personal level. I could talk to Naval as Naval rather than typically what happens in any communication, which is very generic, right? All of us get that. But, just maybe I should just give you a 30-second sense of what our business is about. We run a health insurance business, which is very different from what you would traditionally experience as a health insurance business. Health insurance business is all about what I call sickness insurance, sickness funding. I don't think so that's the way the category can run, because when we are building a lifelong relationship with consumers, you have to build something more meaningful, something more positive than a fear-based engagement. So we, call ourselves a health-first insurer, where we engage with consumers around the theme of health, and then insurance, if something happens. Now, something like that is high engagement, high scale engagement, very personal, and which is where we saw that shift happening and helping us a lot. So yes, you're right. The adoption went up, but if the base was X, I think clearly the next base is significantly higher than where it was. And even if there is a plateau, I mean, I'm technically not necessarily seeing a plateau, but the pace of growth that we were seeing earlier may have come down a bit. So definitely consumers are more willing to talk to the category on the digital world, because they feel that, it is more meaningful to them. It is more personal to them than what it used to be earlier. And we have leveraged that significantly, well, because we think that it's a huge opportunity for businesses. We are also seeing that, some of the segments like senior citizens, for example, we would struggle to reach out to them, in a meaningful manner. Suddenly that segment is completely open. And why it is important? Because that's a very important segment for, the health insurance business. So I think newer category of segments have got completely opened up. Now, I think it's for the businesses to respond to this willingness of consumers to engage and interact with them on the digital platform in a way that makes it more relevant for them. I think that's an opportunity we've got. We have to now respond back to the consumers.
Yeah, very interesting 2-3 points. Good growth means, bullishness for all of us. It also means increased targets for next year. But what it also does is it brings in, more aggression from all the players in the market, perhaps more players in the market. So overall, while it lifts the tide for everyone, it also means more complexity for, business owners, for CEOs who are running the company, more complexity for marketers in terms of reaching out. BFSI sector is very, very unique in many ways. But two of the important sort of pillars that stand out for BFSI sector, and perhaps you can throw more light on that, is one, trust, because, as you rightly said, it is about health. And, many of us, for example, might want the same car, but when it comes to, health related products, everybody is unique. So the second aspect of health is personalization, right? Trust and personalization. These are perhaps, if you talk to a, business owner or a marketer today, are the most difficult puzzles to crack when it comes to sort of talking to consumers. So what is your approach on that? How do you kind of go about tackling these two, very critical challenges which are important for your sector?
Yeah, I think in financial services, I think the first element of trust comes from the offerer itself. I mean, who is the offerer? Which is a brand that you're representing? At least in our case, we're very fortunate to represent a extremely large and trustworthy and trusting brand, right? I mean, it has a history of more than 100 years. So therefore, that's something that comes given to us. But having said that, it's you don't I mean, you have to earn the element of trust from consumers, right? And a lot of that comes from experience that, and in today's digital world, the word of mouth has a very large implication in how the trust in the brands actually moves from one to the other consumers. So I think that's very, very clearly given. In our case, because of our model of a very personalized health first kind of conversation with consumers, our products, for example, say that if you live a healthy life, we will reward you for good health. The digital world gives us that opportunity. All of you are smartphone users. We know what's happening in your physical world in terms of your physical health. And based on that and a few other matrix elements that we have, we reward you. Now, I'm interacting with each consumer, therefore, as a brand at a very personal level. My conversation is at a very personal level. Hey, Naval, we saw you yesterday that, you, for example, you walked X steps, or, for the last 1 week, you were walking X steps. Suddenly we realized in the next 1 week, it has gone down. Is there a reason? Can we help you? So I'm saying that, and that conversation to Naval will be very different from a email that Naval gets, walking is good, you must walk. I mean, that would not, is not something that consumers love, because there's so much of spam junk that is, forced upon us, that unless it's hyper personalized and relevant, it doesn't really appeal to the the brand. But because of our model itself, similarly, we get so much health data that we risk stratify, and we reach out to consumers through all mediums, including digital, of course, is a large scale medium, that we can talk to the consumers about their personal health. N is equal to 1. I think that makes a difference, and I think the digital medium makes it really, really practical. More importantly, economically viable. I can't deal with scale engagement in the physical world. There's no way we can make that happen. I think that's fair. And I think if you have the right content in that communication and the right messaging, of course, there are aspects of behavior science, etc., which are coming into play, so that, the right nudges, etc., come into play. But I think content, becomes very critical when we reach out in the context of personal communication, because content also has to be personalized. It can't just be generic.
Absolutely. I think important points you make here, very importantly, how digital allows you to reach the mass scale. And if I can add to that, at a, reasonable cost, if you were to do it in, the old sort of legacy world, the cost would be humongous. Tell us, coming to, the content and the marketing part of your business. I know you don't run marketing, but, when you sit down with your marketing team with a brief, and every CEO today is looking at, one, investing more and experimenting more and more sort of in the digital world. What are the few, KPI metrics that you tell your marketing team to look for when it comes to use of digital to, either reach out to customers, or say run loyalty programs, or run retention programs?
See, I mean, at the end of the day, what are the business objectives? Let's say in our case, what will we want to do? We'll want to first reach out to a much larger base of the targeted prospect base, right? Is my targeted customer base aware of what I'm offering, what I stand for as a brand? I think it starts with there. I mean, the funnel has to be opened at that level, and thereafter all the other KPIs, of course, come in terms of will that targeted segment, in terms of the way you are communicating with them, the content they're using, are they finding that relevant to be willing to respond to that conversation desire of ours with the targeted population, right? And I think the first thing is that each of these intervention, campaign, or whatever you want to call it, it has to be meant for a very targeted base. When we used to do, or when we do, let's say, a TV campaign, typically it's a much more wider mass program, right? I mean, you may say, okay, I'm targeting this segment on this TV program, or on this news channel, etc. But we all know that it's not really as segmented as you want to make it. So I think in terms of digital marketing intervention, that whole aspect of how are you making it relevant for that focus segment that we have given you to reach out for. That's another very, very important. For example, we recently launched a product for the millennial, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, hopefully. And there's a very different way of talking to that segment than, let's say, if when we launched our senior citizen product, or teenagers product, as they sometimes they're called. So I think that's another thing. And of course, many of them, normally my marketing colleagues don't like to the funnel to go back finally to the moolah, in the box, the cash in the box. But that's something that we keep having some interesting argument, that finally I want money into the organization. You may have a wonderful campaign, you have a wonderful intervention, but is the consumer finally saying, yes, I'm willing to sign the check? And I really, because, but having said that, there's also a brand element about the whole program, that is it really helping us position and create the brand that we are trying to do. For example, in our case, we didn't want to be seen as the traditional, boring, reactive, I don't want to really engage with this kind of a brand which traditionally insurance is known for, to be hopefully seen as slightly more interesting. Seems like something worth talking to and understanding what they're really offering. And in many ways, I must say that the team has done a reasonably good job to get us
Tell
there.
us a little bit more about that, Mayank, because it's very interesting what you put across, because, health, especially health insurance, when it comes to that, most of us wake up when we are in our 40s, right? When you're in your 20s or 30s, you don't bother, you go to your gym or you go running and try and take care of that. Even otherwise, your body sort of supports the journey. Now, when you target millennials, or when you target the younger population, it is doubly difficult to talk to them, because that's not like a priority area, right? So how do you sort of crack that challenge? Tell us the campaign you've done. Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so it has to first start with the offering itself, right? Because I may do a wonderful campaign, but ultimately, if the offering that is being positioned before the consumer through that campaign, if it's not fitting the expectation, requirement, need of that consumer segment, it will not. So we've launched a product called Active Fit. It's meant typically for the millennial segment. What were some of the insights that we were getting when we reached out to their segment? They said, hey, why should I buy insurance? Health insurance. I mean, I'm fairly hale and hearty. I don't see myself in the hospital. Traditionally, health insurance offers hospitalization benefit. I don't want to build a relationship with you. We said, okay, what if we offer you, a reward for staying healthy? Seems interesting. Talk more. I also like instant gratification. What's in it for me here and now? That's what I hear the millennial population say all the time. I mean, give me something here and now. I don't want to wait for the future. I mean, I don't even want to wait for the end of the year or end of the month. Tell me, what can I get now? Okay, what if I use digital face scan technology to understand what your health condition is instantly? We give you a 10% discount if you're healthy. Okay, seems interesting. What more? So I think there are many such benefits. I don't want to get into product to bore you guys, but so now the the offering seems to be making sense to that consumer segment. How do I reach out to them? How do I communicate to them? Which medium do I use? I'm not sure TV is the best segment for that population, right? Digital is, because that's where they are. I mean, ultimately, what is marketing all about? To my mind, I mean, what do I expect them? Be where the consumer is. Don't call the consumer to where you are, because that's not what will give you scale. So if the consumer is at scale in the digital economy, in the digital platform, get there. So in this campaign, we said, okay, they must hear the messaging from people whom they can relate to. So the protagonist in this, the person who's playing is we have Ali Fazal, who's taking this communication to that segment on the digital world. It's typically an Insta or a campaign, of course, on other mediums as well, like Facebook and YouTube, etc. We have used influencers in a big way in this communication, where people like Radhika Bose and Varun Verma, who are health influencers, whom I was told that I was not the target segment, by the way, for these individuals, but I was told that the millennials really look at them as real influencers, and we use them. We use some interesting techniques called the photo bombing and all of stuff, which really is something used. And now they're put on, we asked many of our consumers to create their own reels, etc. So I think it was in the way consumers kind of consume content, and some very interesting feedback we've got so far of how we took both the offering, how we designed the offering, and how we took it to them through whom and etc. So something very different from what we did earlier for our different segments in the past.
Yes, and I think use of influencers really caught on in the last 3 years. In fact, last week we we did another sort of report about the influencer marketing economy, how it's growing, and some of the numbers said that, excluding use of media, almost 1,500 crores is already being spent by brands and corporates on, hiring influencers. And influencers now come in all shapes and forms. 20 years back, there was only a brand ambassador, which would typically be, Bollywood listers. Now you start from, A-grade Bollywood listers going down to what is come to be known as micro and nano influencers, people who have reach in thousands, but, very deep engagement with your community. So for a health sort of focused campaign, that's very interesting to look at. Tell me, it's, very early days when it comes to, things like influencer marketing. So a lot of companies are still experimenting, trying to figure out which is the right fit, what is the right platform to go to, what is the kind of right messaging. While, you start from the top, like you explained, you identified the need gap, you went to the millennial, you identified that digital is the right platform to be. When it comes to the bottom of the funnel, really, which is about, getting these influencers, using the messaging, and then doing what we call conversions or attribution, how are the results? What were the learning from those results? Let me ask you, what are the things that you would do differently next time?
Yeah, so at least in this campaign, it's, I know we are still in the process. So, probably, I'm not sure I can share concrete outcomes yet. I think we're still in the process because we just launched it a couple of weeks back. But from whatever we have done earlier, I think, see, you started by saying that first is that even identifying the right set of influencers, that's a journey, right? Because you start with, because you said nano influencer. And if you are doing hyper personalized engagement effort, then, the choice of that nano influencer becomes very, very important. And of course, there is a effort involved in, there's a process, and there is a whole discipline of how do you convert that interest and, that the consumer is expressing, the desire that the consumer is expressing to have conversation, to finally onboarding with this. Sometimes there's a slip in that whole process itself. But I think it's the journey of both identifying. We are going through our own learnings in terms of the content, in terms of what is it, the right content, because we are not dealing with a very, I would say, glamorous category. We are dealing with a category which is still not something that consumers are typically waiting. It's not that you get in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to buy health insurance today. No, you don't do that, unfortunately. Though you must, by the way, follow all of those who don't have, you must explore that. It's important. But you don't do that. So it's also therefore what will influence. So we are using we are having some conversations with people who understand behavior science in the way our content is created. How do you build in the right nudges in that communication? So sometimes it's not about just using the the right influencer, but what is that right message that converts that intent into action? And especially in the area of health, Naval, and not just insurance, by the way, all of us are used to having a 1st January resolution for I'm going to be healthy this year. And what happens on 7th or 8th of January, we all know. So, it still requires a lot of discipline, right? So I think those are many other areas that we are constantly going back, revisiting. So we have on board, for example, someone who's a Harvard professor, expert in behavior science. He's helping us kind of look at the messaging, the communication, etc. So I think these are areas that we are going through our own learning process, because we are dealing with we are trying to do something very different, especially in the category that we represent.
Very important, very interesting. You mentioned, experts in behavioral science who are helping. It's like how medicine is moving. People are, while you rely on modern medicine, you also kind of are going back to the roots in terms of, what in India used to be known as natural, naturopathy, relying on more natural products. That's why this entire wave of organic food products is kind of, sweeping the world right now, because people want to consume more and more food which is kind of unadulterated, lesser on toxic value. So, health insurance is really kind of dovetails into that. I see our time is up, so I'll ask you one last question before we throw the house open. Uh, I hear you in the sense that, more and more of the money that you spending for customer reach out is happening on the digital platforms. Legacy media still has value, right? You spoke about television briefly. Naturally, it does not allow you very sort of targeted communication at each of the cohorts, and some of the cohorts are not even present on television. Print also might not allow you. So how do you look at your overall media mix now? It is a given that majority of the company's brands are now doing increasing spends on digital, right? Like I mentioned at the start, the Group M report this week said 48% of money that companies are spending is now going on digital. What is your proportion of spends you're doing on digital, if you can tell us that? And what is the value you still see for legacy media, TV and print?
Yeah, interesting that you asked that question, Naval, because in the morning itself, I was having this conversation with my marketing head, and in the context of a more mass brand campaign that we are kind of contemplating, and I was asking this question that should we go full digital in this? And again, I'm not a marketing expert. The response I got from my marketing experts, including some of the other partners, was that for that kind of a program effort, we must use the mass media TV also. And I was told, you guys will know it better, is that post-COVID, I mean, the shift that has happened significantly towards the the digital platform, the OTT, and all of them, there is kind of a bit of a reverse shift happening back to the mass media on TV, etc. So we must use that. I was still asking them, please help me understand why, because that's not as efficient, at least as I started feeling. But I'm told that no, that is still required. So from whatever we are seeing now, I mean, the sense I'm getting in that if you are so all our regular marketing campaigns are more or less digital, the regular stuff that we keep doing, which are very, very targeted, which are very specific segment focused. But where we are trying to now take the brand to a larger mass of, and I would say more a larger congregate of several segments with some common messaging, there I'm getting a sense that we'll have to use the TV as a medium as well, apart from a few other traditional medium. That's the sense I'm getting.
Very interesting you mentioned that. I'll just add a couple of points to that. When I say the average spend in India is 8% on digital, that also means that there are companies who are already doing more than 50%, perhaps 60% on digital. And I would imagine a category like yours, especially in the BFSI space, certainly is on the higher end and not on the lower end. So you are certainly 50% plus. And interestingly, yesterday I read an article on HBR, Harvard Business Review, which speaks about how many large corporations are kind of having experimented significantly with digital, are starting to not kind of wean away from digital, but also bring money back into legacy media, especially television. Digital has been experimented enough in the last 3-4 years to understand the strengths, understand the weaknesses. But one thing I think remains true, that a lot of companies continue to use television in sort of helicopter level push when you want to build your brand, do a large campaign. But as you rightly said, when you're doing individual tactical campaigns, digital holds the sway. Thank you so much, Mayank. I see our time is up. If anybody has any questions, you can shoot them now, or take them off stage later. Bhavna, if you permit, if you have time, maybe a couple of questions if anybody has. Yeah, Dharmendra, can we get a mic there?
Naval, we're just getting the mic passed. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dharmendra Rai. I was very fascinated that you used the term nudge twice. So could you give us an example of a single use of a nudge? Whatever the results may have been.
Yeah, I'll give you a slightly, a very recent example. I mean, it's not a pure play nudge, but using the right words. So we have this benefit of mental health counseling, which we brought in during COVID time. We realized that people were going through this whole challenges of stress, etc. And we brought in that benefit where we have a helpline for all our consumers, including the ability to have conversation with psychologists, etc. And we've been using this word mental health counseling, and we realized the usage was very, very low. And then we spoke to some experts and and they said, if you and especially the millennial segment, or even for that matter, the larger segment. So in India, if you use the word mental health counseling, it means, oh my God, I mean, what are you talking? I mean, so if you use the word stress management, just change the word stress management, the usage suddenly increase. So in our communication, when we move from the word mental health counseling to you have a opportunity to deal with your stress, please reach out and talk. Suddenly so I think it's a combination of various things. In nudges, sometimes, what we do is that if we want the consumer to buy one of the option, we give typically 3 options. The middle one is where we want the consumer to be focused. If we give them 3 choices, one slightly inferior, the right one, and we typically find in 85-90% cases, the consumer will choose the middle segment, which is what we want the consumer to choose, because we feel that's the right segment. Not that because we want to sell, but sometimes the consumer is not. When you give 2 choices, it's difficult. When you give 1, they don't want to make the choice because they feel that, no, I'm not having an opportunity to make a choice. So it's a fantastic science. You should read a book, Nudge, by
Richard Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. For those of you who are interested in that area, I love that.
I mean, I think it's a very apt and perfect term for marketers sitting in this room. I mean, who doesn't want to nudge a customer to sort of get them to buy your product?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dharmendra. Anybody else with a question? Yeah, there's a hand up there.
All right, we'll just get a mic quickly passed. Actually, there are 2, but then we can't take so many. I know it's a lot of questions brewing in. Mr. Ahuja, would 1 more be fine with you?
Yes,
Yeah?
please.
Perfect, ma'am, please.
Hello, I'm Shabdabani. You mentioned a couple of times that I'm not a marketeer and a CEO. So I want to ask this question to a CEO, and I'm sure many of the marketing colleagues here are itching to ask this question. So as a business person, how much weightage do you put on traditional brand building versus performance marketing? Because business always put the pressure that what you bring home, and brand building is typically looked at as a long-term thing that doesn't give you any outcome to the business. So how do you put weightage on these 2 metrics?
I see clearly, especially in the category that I represent, trust is extremely important. And as I said earlier, trust starts with the way the prospect sees the offerer. Where is who is this offerer? I mean, I think it's very important. So for a category like ours, brand building, all our initial marketing investment in the first 3 years went towards brand building. All is probably a exaggeration. A big part of our spend went there because it was very important. Even though we represented the Birla brand, but just the fact that the Birla brand is into a health insurance category and we'll do that, I think it's very, very important. Having said that, over a period of time, the component, the proportion, starts changing. And I don't think that there's a magic formula. It all depends on at what stage the organization is. Is the brand well recognized? Is the brand well trusted, like in our category? So that will, but over the past, 2-3 years, a lot more has gone into actual performance marketing or consumer acquisition. But there is definitely a rub-off effect that it must have on the brand, which means that there has to be something fundamentally stitched through all your campaign, which talks the brand language. You cannot just in the name of performance marketing do something which is very different from the way the brand is seen, or you want the consumer to see your brand. So I think it's something that has to be kept in all the time, but it depends on the stage of the maturity of the organization also.
Thank you.
Sure. So as much as the participant me wants to hear, further conversations, but I'll have to hold a pause to that. And we'd like to, of course, thank our speaker, Mayank. Mayank, thank you so much. Let's give him a big, big round of applause.
A big round of applause for Mr. Batwal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Batwal, and we request Mr. Ahoja to please help us in felicitating Mr. Batwal. Can we have the felicitation to be done on the stage? Could we have the memento passed down? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let the applause continue as we can have the opportunity of thanking him with our bigger round of applause. Come on, everyone. What an excellent leadership he's presented at this forum. Hashtag E4M Content Jam. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just begun, and what an excellent start it is. Thank you so much, Mr. Batwal. Thank you so much, Mr. Ahoja, on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, as our dignitaries have endowed us with such excellent knowledge, it is only and only getting better with the most exciting and an awaited panel discussion on the other side. We're talking about the roadmap to create value for brands, the power of creation, co-creation, and collaboration. So you may call them as the 3 Cs. Well, marketing and innovation have and will continue to be 2 of the strongest drivers of margin and revenue growth. The concept of the customer value is central to both of them. This, of course, being true, and perhaps just as importantly, collaboration and co-creation are increasingly central to creating customer value. As our stage is being set, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the panelists who will be joining us in a short while. We have the Chief Marketing Officer, Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance. We have the Head of Marketing of Cisca Group. We have the Managing Director of NEPA. We've got the VP Head of Marketing, Pepperfry. We've got the Vice President and Head of Marketing, Kaya. And of course, the Vice President, Content Plus, Mindshare, will be joining us. So such a power-packed discussion this is going to be. And as I can see my stage being ready, it is my cue to kickstart with our panel discussion. On that note, first up, it is my honor to call upon our first panelist, Managing Director, NEPA, Esha Nagar. Let's give her a big, big round of applause, Esha. Thank you so much for joining us. Looking extremely vibrant in the electric blue. Great to see you. Next up, I'd like to have the honor of inviting the Vice President and Head of Marketing, Kaya, Samyukta Ganesh Iyer. Do we have Ms. Iyer? Yes, right there. Ms. Iyer, looking very vibrant yourself. Thank you for joining us. Next up, it's my honor to have the Chief Marketing Officer, Edelweiss Tokyo Life Insurance, Abhishek Gupta. Thank you so much, Mr. Gupta, for joining us. Great to see you. Next up, I'd like to have the honor of inviting the VP Head of Marketing, Pepperfry, Naveen Murali. Naveen, the smile can only get bigger when you're walking towards the stage. Let's give Mr. Murali a big, big round of applause. Of course, now it is time for me to invite the Head of Marketing, Cisca Group, ladies and gentlemen, Amit Sethia. Thanks, Amit, for joining in. And as our panelists are on the stage, ladies and gentlemen, the most important aspect of any panel discussion, of course, is the curation aspect of moderating and being the session chair. We're honored now to call upon the Vice President, Content Plus Mindshare, Mantkaran Nandkarni. A lot of hoots are following you. The minds are definitely shared on that front. Well, on that note, over to you. Would you like, no, either or, yes. However.
Hello and good afternoon. Well, I won't waste much time because we just have 40 minutes and I won't waste time what we call narrating what the topic is. And you can call me Mac because my name is a little long itself. But interestingly, I would just give you some example, some instance from my own family. It's not far from what the topic is. My mom She's a 75-year-old woman. Nowadays, for the past 1 year, I've been observing that she is staying awake till night. I mean, she's a sleep early, get up early kind of a person. And what she's actually doing is basically looking at videos of recipes or embroidery. And then a month back, she sends me a link. She wants to buy some stuff from Amazon, some sort of a kit. That's one end of it. Another end of it is my nephew, actually. He's a 20-year-old guy, just out of college. And we call him the mini Junjunwala. He's already invested in stocks. He's learning about futures. And the way he's doing that, he's basically learning from a lot of financial creators on YouTube. Can you hear me?
Oh, little louder.
Sorry. Should I repeat? So my nephew, basically, he's a 20-year-old guy. We call him the mini Junjunwala. And what he's been doing is learning the art of investing just by watching a lot of these creators on YouTube. He's also into the whole underground culture. He learns rap. And another example from my own family is my niece. Actually, she stays in a very small town called Hunavar in Karnataka. And she's already a big fan. She's just 10-year-old. She's already a big fan of BTS. I mean, she sings those songs. She puts them as reels out there. What I also learned recently, I mean, I was just speaking to Michelle and I got to learn today that she's also a mommy blogger. Okay, I mean, she has 15,000 followers. So my first question is actually to Isha. Okay, I mean, Isha, you are at the heart of consumer science. Yeah, ho kya raha hai? I mean, what is happening in this landscape itself?
Thank you, Mac, for giving that opening question. Very excited to be here with the panel. And I think you already opened up with giving examples from your family, right? From the age spectrum, what Max spoke about, right from his mother to your nephew, in terms of how they're consuming content. So to the question of ye ho kya raha hai, I think it's just that we are living in real life than real life at the moment, from what you spoke. And giving a consumer perspective, and I'll bring in some numbers, being from the consumer science side. If we talk about the world today, we are sitting with consumer creators at a tally of 50 million content creators. And for this planet Earth with 8 billion humans, that's a big number on content creation itself. So that's happening on the creator side and creative or creator economy, the way we would want to call it. And if we talk about brands, I think that it has never been a better time when brands wanted to create communities, when brands wanted to create more long-term effect of how they're engaging with the consumers and how much they could sort of push themselves from being undifferentiated commodities to being very differentiated personas, right? So there's creation happening, there's a need for the brands, and on the other side, the consumer has started believing in purpose, which is what is the brand really standing for? What are you really giving to me from a short-term or a long-term perspective? You are selling this, but what are you actually doing? Because we are opening up to a generation of doers with Gen Z, Gen Alpha coming our way, right? So I think it's brand, consumers, and a parallel stream of creation, and it just converges like magic. There's a need, there is an offering, and there is consumption. So this is what is happening, which is the complete explosion, which is giving rise to a creator economy like never before, if that sums it up.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Working. So that comes to my second question. I mean, to you all, in fact, is are the lines blurring between the content creator and the brand ambassador as the face of the brand? And could you hear me? I'll take that. Yeah.
I'll put it like this. Is this audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would take it like this. I think there was a time where, to add on to what she said, right? Content was only created by a few and then consumed by all. We moved from that to content being consumed by all and then created by all, right? I think that's where we are. And just to take an example, right? We work with brand ambassadors for our multiple campaigns, but today we also have a separate community called Pep Homies, which is a 1,000+ large community of you and I would put it as you and I, because these are people who on Instagram have 5,000 followers, maybe 10,000 followers. That's just you and I. And why do we have them? I think that's the more important part, right? Why did brands have ambassadors, like you asked before? Is that we wanted reach, we wanted trust, as in the previous session that was being talked about. What these people provide today is, if I see my friend talking about a particular brand and the experience that the brand provides to them, there's a lot more believability, or there's a lot more association with that content. And which is where we started off in this journey with this community, right? And today what this community does is, like I said, there are 1,000+ people who post every month, right? And I'm not talking about for a campaign, for a particular event. 1,000+ people posting every month, where the content that they provide and produce is a lot more engaging. Like if I look at the engagement rates of those content versus sometimes what even the brand produces, they provide exceptional content, right? Which is also because it leads to the question, who is providing and making the content, right? We have a lot of people, a large chunk of these people are 18 to 25-year-olds, right? There are moms who are 45-year-olds plus, right, in the community that are working. And some of these people are providing and producing content like never before and providing great engagement. So yes, I think the lines are blurred, but more importantly, the question is, why do we do this? And I think it's leading to good results from there.
I will just give a little different point of view, because I believe it's a panel discussion. So views should be okay. You know, let's go back to old school. When we actually decided, or we used to decide to get a brand ambassador, there was a lot of exercise that in terms of what does the brand stand for? What are the values that you stand for? What are the consumer gaps that you're addressing? And therefore, what is the messaging that at the end, if that messaging required a celebrity, then the celebrity used to come in, provided the celebrity has a fit. The fit needs to be in terms of the value, in terms of reach, obviously. There are a lot of things, and there's a lot of science behind that. Now, what I feel is, as the lines are blurring, diligence or due diligence, as we finance people used to call it, those are in an attempt to do something, in an attempt to have an influencer marketing strategy as a part of your overall brand arsenal, those due diligence are probably taking a backseat. And what I believe is, if not checked, this might actually prove counterproductive to the brand. While yes, content creators and micro are good, they should be tested and they should be used. But I still believe, as an old school marketer, that the values that a marketer brings to table, those values should never be.
I think there's some problem with his mic. If we can just get it changed. Samyukta, I mean, BPC, I mean, such a cluttered category. I mean, it's one of the categories which has one of like largest number of creators, right? I mean, I have handled BPC for 6 years, handling Unilever brands. What's your take on this? I mean?
So, since it's a panel discussion, I think, yeah, but having said that, I'd like to kind of marry what both of you said, because I think if I have to specifically take the example of what we've been doing. So we actually did a huge repositioning exercise last year. It was 18 years for Kaya. And we realized that there was a lot of legacy that the brand holds. It was one of the first to the market. It was a visionary brand. There was a lot of authenticity in the way the brand has always been built. There was always inclusivity as part of the brand tenet. But I think the beauty of, and I think if I have to borrow from what you said about brands with purpose, right? And that's how the Gen Z and millennials today, they relate to brands that are authentic, that are real, that are honest, where the conversations are extremely real and honest. So yeah, if I have to marry it with what you said, Abhishek, there is a lot of effort that goes into, like you rightly said, what is the RTB, what is the USP, what does the brand stand for? And we realized that for us, the tenets is authenticity and being real, being honest. And that's where we said we will only work with collaborators who actually embody the spirit of inclusivity in their own lives. So we actually work only with collaborators or influencers from any sphere of life who actually behold these tenets. And they are friends of Kaya. So they are the ones, their clients, their friends, they are people whom we actually actively collaborate with. The other big one that we have done, again, borrowing from what you said, we have 100 plus dermats. We have like actual qualified MD doctors within our ecosystem. And we realized who better than them to kind of, create this entire influencer ecosystem. You spoke about, creating a community. It took a lot, because there are people out there who are willing to put themselves out. And, like you said, your niece is creating reels with BTS. And then there are a lot of doctors who are extremely old school and they're like, what do you want me to like dance in front of the camera? And what are these songs? And, what are you making me do? So it took a lot to kind of, start that journey. And that's where we've been at, to ensure that, yes, we are beholding the brand's tenets, but the voices are actually real and coming from the community.
I'll direct this question to Amit. Amit, in the FMEG segment, I mean, Cisco has come a little long way from what it was. It used to be a LED manufacturing company to now you're into cool wearables. I mean, you're into watches, you're into power banks, you're into groomings. I mean, how would you see this in your segment? I mean,
I hope I'm audible. So I think the moment you hear the brand name Cisco, the first thing that comes to your mind is obviously LED lights, right? Because that's what, the journey was started with around 8 to 9 years back. So I think, we are talking about content creators, right? So I think for us, it completely depends upon which segment you are, addressing in terms of your marketing programs. And I think if you look at, the little serious categories like LED and wires and fans, I think there we are able to bring in the typical brand ambassador and put this in the entire marketing programs and serve the content to the audiences, right? Now, when you look at the new age categories, which you spoke about, like today, Cisco is also giving you grooming appliances, wearables, hearables, smart home products, etc. I think in these categories, I think we have realized that it's not really important for us to invest huge monies in bringing the face to the brand, because ultimately these guys, the millennials and the Gen Zs, are still discovering, their passion. They're trying to identify themselves. So I think there are different mindsets, I think, these guys bring, so example, look at grooming appliances, for example, right? So I remember, it was about, pushing the very thought of, styling your facial hair, etc. And today it has just become a regular societal norm, and so while it is about, people to look good, at the same time, it is also about people to feel, very hygienic about, what they are up to in life. So, when you go to a regular gym, half of the time guys like are working out with huge weights, and half the time they are, actually self-admiring themselves in front of the mirror. So I think now the terms are like manscaping, etc., are emerging. So imagine the mindset that I'm using is not only to look good, but also, when you're looking at something which is beyond being looking good, right? My own dad, like I remember, he used to scold me ages back, right? Ki if I'm like getting delayed by a week or two for my haircut, he's like, kya huliya bana rakha hai? And the same man, he's now, donning a pony. And I'm like, what kind of double standard, right? So I think things are changing. Even in case of, my wearables and hearables, I remember like, again, these Gen Zs and millennials are having various interests, right from, I think 3-4 years back, it was about using a lot of wrappers for my content, today to even fashion, because today these accessories are not only used for functional benefits, but also for their aesthetics. मेरा एयरपोर्ट लुक कैसा जाएगा, मेरा जिम लुक कैसा जाएगा, मेरा ऑफिस लुक कैसा हो जाएगा. So I think there are various aspects that you need to address when you're looking at a younger audience. Now if I start investing huge monies for various kinds of celebrities, I think brand ka fir band bach jayega. So I think I don't want to sort of face that.
Thanks. Naveen, with content creators driving so much of conversation, how do you see your strategies evolve, or is this even changing the course of thinking that you're doing in advertising? I mean, I want you to paint a picture from your industry perspective. I mean,
Yeah, so I'll just add to what he said and what a couple of them added, right? By using an example. So for this Diwali, when we had to reach out for our Diwali campaign, the idea was to, like somebody said earlier, some of these other mediums clubbed with a brand ambassador ends up providing one reach to maybe markets where you are otherwise not present. And along with what you are communicating done right, build trust, etc. Right. So for the Diwali campaign, we actually did the opposite, right? Which is what everybody does, because we're talking about content on Instagram and other platforms. Our campaign was actually around memes from Instagram being taken to outdoor, right? So the format was opposite. Now, when we took memes from mobiles to the outdoor, of course, one, you've broken the format there, but the idea was, how do we now provide reach to that? So we actually had Saif and Karina, who are our brand ambassadors, enact various meme formats on various outdoors, driving the brand messaging, right? So, and that led to a lot of eyeballs and hence traffic and whatever else after that, right? So I think both will coexist. It's a question of what he said. It's about what kind of content do I want created with whom, and how does it add back value to the brand? Hence, you will continue to see both coexisting, is how I believe. So yesterday, for example, a video that we worked with one of our collaborators, whom we call Pep Homies, ended up having 2 million views, right? And that's a person who has not as many followers as anybody else. So I see both happening. Both will coexist. It's about how brands marry them both and take their journeys ahead. We, for our case, we are a furniture brand, but we are also a home brand. So we have furnishing, decor, a lot of these things. When I work with maybe these Pep Homies is where they end up showcasing a lot of the decor we do, a lot of furniture options, furnishing. When I take mainstream, I talk a lot furniture, right? So that's how we play. It's category, content, a marriage of all of them, right?
Samyukta, you want to take this, I mean, your views on this, because you also normally channel brand. You're digital first, but you also have a lot of studios. I mean, you have a lot of parlors, right? I mean, you're entering the tier 2, tier 3. How do you see this this strategy evolving in your ecosystem of your brand?
For us also, I think it's very similar. I think I'll echo what you said in terms of yeah, you have to, because there is no other option, right? I don't think there's any option. And I think the good or the bad is that today everyone is creating content. Like you said, your 75-year-old mom to your 15-year-old niece, everyone's a content creator today. So I think for the brand, it's amazing, because what happens is that brands, the onus of starting conversations, even 10 years back, was on the brand. Yeah. So the brand had to pick up topics, the brand had to be cool, the brand had to be relevant. The entire pressure, so to speak, was on the brand to kind of create outstanding content and put it out there. Today, as a brand, you can literally just participate in a conversation. You could just, pique eyeballs of a consumer who wouldn't have otherwise even looked at your brand. And you could actually organically, merely by participating, actually end up getting customer footfalls by not doing too much. So I think that's the beauty of where the evolution of content is kind of going. There's a lot of authenticity also happening. I'm going to stick to that because that's where we are. Absolutely. But I think, yeah, that's a beautiful space that we are all in. I think, but there's a long way to go. I think the truth is none of us know where this is going, because everyone's just out there, not too sure where all of it is headed.
Abhishek, BFSI as a category is very compliant when it comes to this. I mean, is it something different that you see within your strategies?
As you rightly said, Mac, that our industry is highly regulated. So that means that suppose we are doing this event and my company wants to put out a social media post saying that I was present over here. We cannot do it like this. It has to go through a full process of approval, compliance, and this thing, and then it comes out. And that goes with every kind of initiative that we as a company would like to do, and rightly so, because this industry is prone to a lot of frauds and a lot of mis-selling and everything. So regulations are required. What it does is it kind of stifles the creativity that probably we could have. But on the other end, I also say that probably we use this excuse to not saying kuch kar nahi sakte because compliance will say. So what we try to do over here is we cannot use celebrities as such directly or my influencers to sell directly. What we try to use influencers is a lot of driving positive engagement for the brand. I cannot sell through influencers, that is not allowed. Because to sell an insurance, you need a license. Otherwise, you're not allowed to sell unless consumer decides to buy on their own through the web journey. And to give you a data point, in spite of all those advancement in people buying their own, across the country, people buying insurance on their own is only 8%. 92% of insurance, I'm not talking about our company, I'm talking about the industry. 92% of the industry actually buys, 92% of sales comes when somebody is assisting an insurance buying process. And that person who's assisting needs to be licensed. So while influencers cannot sell directly for us, what we have actually realized is these influencers help us to clear a lot of misconceptions around insurance. I can do a dipstick in this room right now and ask people that how many of you are adequately insured? And I know the answer, 99% of people would be inadequately insured in this room. In this room, we are probably talking about people who are more aware, who are probably doing well in their lives and have disposable income in spite of that and aware of their responsibilities. But in spite of that, we are all underinsured, including me. So what these influences, and that was just an example. Other problems that the industry faces is complexity. Other problem is a lot of mis-selling has happened in the past. So trust issues with the advisor who's coming to selling you insurance. What influencers help us is to bridge the gap over there. And that is extremely important for the industry. Extremely important for the industry. And there they play a huge role. So if I have to classify between the two, we use micro celebrities and influencers to drive positive brand engagement and also to quell a lot of myths. But large campaigns, when we have to do where we are actually asking consumers to either go to our website or go to an aggregator website or contact an insurance agent, those kind of campaigns are normally driven through a larger than life celebrity.
Thanks. Amit, to you, I mean, brands have been increasingly collaborating with a lot of pop culture things. I mean, whether it's sports, whether it's movies, whether it's entertainment, whether it's even like-minded brands, for that matter. I mean, and this is all been happening to harness a younger audience in that sense. How are you doing that in your category or with your brand?
I think for us, it's about, discovering the same, consumer mindsets, which I spoke about earlier. I think so. It's both ways, like, short term and long term both. So example, from last, I think 5-6 years, this whole rage of, grooming appliances and application products, and specifically for men, like, they have like reached a, beautiful peak, I would say. So I think there are these brands, I can name them now, example, the Man Company. So we collaborated with them because they also are offering a product which is kind of complementing the very category that we are also trying to tap, right? Which is about grooming and grooming men basically. अब पहले के ज़माने में शैम्पू सिर्फ शैम्पू होता था, अब बियर्ड के लिए शैम्पू है, मसाज ऑयल है, and I don't know what not under the sun. So I think it's nice. I mean, like, like you have now so many choices to look at. Either you convince them or confuse them, marketing mantra. So I think that's where it all stems into. But I think, yes, we collaborated with them and co-created the proposition, which kind of worked like really well. So that was like a little short-term kind of thing I can talk about, wherein we offered them trimmers. But example, there is another brand, Peter England, right? So that brand is also known to go out and tap the same kind of mindsets, right? The younger audiences today. So when they collaborated with us for a small pilot, they were very happy to, get the results across their Cat A and Cat B outlets across the country. And basis that, they actually got a lot of confidence, because of which they said, ki, theek hai. First we saw, the kind of reaction, that your trimmers are getting for the brand Peter England. Now we want to, develop a product together with you. So now, we have actually launched a series of trimmers, basically keeping in mind the design inputs of Peter England. So today the product not only has a sign off of Siska brand, but also the logo of Peter England onto it, just to bring in more confidence. So I think that's kind of a little long term that we have with them, the association. So I think it's both ways.
Abhishek, how are you doing it with Edelweiss?
Yeah, so why we can't do too much of co-branding, but what we realized is, see, we are a financial organization, and finance is going to be driven by the growth story of our country. We are firm believers in India growth story, and we believe India is at the cusp of when the compounding actually starts. And when the compounding actually starts to kick in, and that's when disproportionate growth happens. And we are at that cusp. Since we are believers in India growth story, we also wanted to clearly communicate that we believe in India's future. While there are many ways to do it, we decided to focus on an area which traditionally has been very neglected, and not much investments coming into that area. And the area that we identified was sports, and within sports also very clear non-cricket sports. Cricket takes almost 99% of all the funds that are available in the country for sporting events. We decided to focus on the 1% which was, and see if we can actually do something meaningful over there. So we tied up with Indian Olympic Association, and we actually sponsored the Indian Olympic team, which had gone to Rio as well as which had gone to Tokyo. So last two editions of Indian Olympics team which had gone, we were the principal sponsors of the team. And as a part of that arrangement, we were also sponsors of the team which had gone to Commonwealth Games and Asian Games of last two instances. Why did we do it? Number one is because we said that we believe that like India is about to grow as far as finance is concerned, even at sports, while we are not at the cusp, I think we still have a journey to come at the cusp and then disproportionate returns. But I believe we have started that journey right now. And at this point of time, it is important for meaningful brands to come together and start investing in sports. So while we have partnered with the Indian Olympic Association, on the side, we also partnered with top female athletes of the country. We started with Saina Nehwal, then we had Rani Rampal, then we had Deepa Karmakar, Mirabai Chanu, Mary Kom, Hina Sidhu, the shooter, and Hima Das, the athlete, the sprinter. We started supporting them, and we have been supporting them for quite some time. So that's our way of doing something. Do we talk about it? Not really, because this is what something we inherently believe in. But as a marketeer, I need to look at ROI. How does this help us from a marketeer or from returns perspective? As I was telling you, we are essentially dependent upon trade. My distributors, we have 45,000 distributors to sell life insurance for us. This becomes a huge, huge talking point with our distributors that you are associated with a brand which sponsors the Indian team. These distributors then go out in the market and talk to consumers, because we are a challenger brand, and we're not even a challenger brand till now. 24 players in life insurance segment, we are probably number 16 right now, although we were 24 when we started because we are the youngest. But there are a lot of ground to be covered for us. So that really helps us from trade building perspective, these kind of associations. But why did we do it? Because we believe in it. Right.
Samantha, are you doing anything in this direction? I mean, building pop culture trends and collaborations there?
For us, again, after we did the entire rebrand, and like I said, it's always been part of the legacy. So it's just about putting the narrative out there, letting people know that this is what we are doing. One big initiative that we're all really proud of is the one that we did in March. And that is something where we collaborated very closely with our HR team, because we were very clear that as an organization or as a brand, we can't be doing lip service. So we wanted to work with the transgender community. So for the first time, we got the community to write the script. So usually as brands, you get scripts are written by the agency partners. It's approved by the client. That's typically how it works. But in this case, we actually co-created the entire campaign. It was shot with the community at the location of their choice. They handpicked who would be in the film. It was directed by them. There was a voiceover artist who was from the community, an influencer from the community who wanted to be part of the campaign. So the entire thing from scratch was created by them, and the script that we approved, they actually dissed it. So then we got them only to write the script, and then the script was also created by them. What we did with our HR was we actually tied up with an organization that actually does sensitivity workshops and trainings, helps in placement and job opportunities. So we actually hired people from the community. So it meant we didn't realize, like for us, the learning was so huge in terms of, even understanding terminologies, how do we kind of behave. Consumers had to be trained, staff had to be trained, everything. There was like a proper 6-month rigor that went into it before we actually went live with the campaign called Beauty and Safety. So for us, actually doing that level of collaboration after we hired somebody, that person started working with us, is when we kind of went live with the whole thing. So we've been trying to do a lot of these kind of meaningful, like you were talking about community impact changes, because for us, clients have been coming to us from all walks of life. Clients have been, it's not primarily a women's brand. It's been a brand that's, like you spoke about men's grooming. We have a lot of athletes. We have a lot of people who are, Bollywood stars, and, we have a lot of people who are models, or like you rightly said, today, everyone is very evolved. Everyone wants to look and feel a certain way. So then opening it up, I think putting those narratives out there is what the beauty of digital is kind of doing for all of us today.
Naveen, you want to say something on this? I mean, how are you doing this? I mean,
so I think two ways. One is the kind of collaborations that we work on, which are meaningful and add back to what the brand is, which is rightfully as mentioned by everyone, right? I think, for example, we work with this community called Atypical Advantage. They are largely, they work with persons with disabilities and provide a form of living to all of them, right? And one of the ways we engage with them is, for example, we engage on art and paintings that they make. Okay, they come forward and anyways, they engage through our platform, sell, etc. But for example, the last Independence Day or the Republic Day, when we do, what we actually did is we went ahead and gave our entire, we have today studios or physical stores across the country, right? We gave that as a canvas for them to come and display their art. And actually our community of consumers engaged with them as they made this, became a part of it. It's just about, I would say, not inclusivity as much as involvement. I think everybody got involved in it. So that's one form of, I mean, like we said, I think it's not something we talk a lot about, but we work with these folks because it's about partnering in that journey. The second, I mean, it's a slightly totally diverse side that I'm talking about also, is where you started off with, which is collaboration on content, right? That's another side which interestingly that I see today is also, while we work with brands to build it up, etc. So for example, we work with India Circus, who's the partner, together create content, etc. What's also increasingly happening today, I think, is brands are working with brands on content. And I'm not even talking about product now, right? I think let's just go back 1 month. There was Wakanda Forever releasing as a movie because it's pop culture and all of that, right? And you saw a lot of brands getting into that moment and talking about it, for example. It also involved Marvel reaching out to brands to say, work with us. So what I've also seen today is a lot of brands are working with other brands because, let's say, I'm a community of, let's say, 25 to 45-year-old NCCS A segment working, who's purchasing furniture with me. And there's another brand which is looking to reach out to them for, I don't know, movies for that segment. Then the brand reaches out, like Amazon reaches out to another on content and promote. So I think that's another trend that I see happening today, which is brands working with each other cohesively to, build content as well. Yeah.
my another question is, brands are building a lot of IPs. I mean, they're building sustainable IPs. I mean, there is Asian Paints, there is in the world of decor, for that matter. And at the same time, you're seeing creators becoming brands, right, in some form or the other. My question is, should brand become publishers? Should brand become creators? I mean, your point of view on that entire thing.
Can I go back?
Yeah.
I almost thought you've forgotten me on that. Okay. So I think talking about IPs, bringing it in from a consumer science perspective again, I think that anyone who wants to create today or wants to stand for something has to create content and has to have an IP. Gone are the days when IP used to be something very serious. IP is a way of expressing thought leadership. It could be anybody. It could be any category. It could be B2B. It could be B2C. We are a consumer science firm. We really don't need to create an IP. We're a market research agency. Agencies never create IP. But then very recently we thought we'll create a podcast because a lot of the people in our industry, we have been just taken as, featured insights. We'll talk research, we'll talk statistics, but we said, okay, we have to make it more scalable, more palatable. So let's create a podcast because that's a way of showing research, which is the tenet of what content we want to sort of speak about. So I think as long as the relevance, as long as the why we are doing it is in check, then IP is something which is agnostic to the sector that we are in as a brand. And then nomenclature is only a thing. I think it's not about whether you're a brand, you're a content creator, as long as you're creating a social connect to sell and to create consideration set for yourself, IP is something which will just get normalized as we go ahead. Yeah.
Just to add on to that, especially for brand owners, try to own the IP. Don't go as a naming partner to the IP. Never do that. Never do that. Because if the IP is with somebody else, tomorrow somebody is going to outprice you. And you will lose all the efforts that you have put in creating the IP. So I am a firm believer of, if you are creating an IP from a brand perspective, please own the IP. Never go for a license kind of an IP where the owner is somebody else.
Naveen, this question is to you, and specifically in the world of decode, or even Samyukta can add to it, is the whole use of tech-led content to kind of define the consumer journey or enable him in some form or the other. Would you like to talk about what are you guys doing in that world? Because you have an offline presence and then you have an online presence. How are you? And the journey for a consumer is the gestation period is quite long, right? For him to decide to kind of buy. How are you enabling that part?
So I'll talk about content as a part of commerce now, right? And fundamentally how that moves. For us, when we started off on this journey 11 years back, furniture was never sold online, right? Where we are today, even today, 85% of the market shops from unorganized, which is your carpenter or a nearby shop. And I'm not talking online now. I'm talking about really unorganized, right? Now, the challenge we had back then when we started off was, how do we really enable this journey? Why should somebody buy a highly non-standardized, high-value product online? We had mobiles, we had books, and we had now fashion. But why buy a highly non-standardized, high-value product online? To enable this is where actually technology came into play, or content which would really enable that, right? And which is where AR came into play. So, for example, when we kicked off on our journey on AR, what we did is, today for a consumer who's sitting in their home looking to buy or make that decision whether this red sofa is great for my home, what AR does is you could place it against that yellow wall in your home, against that photo frame you have, and decide whether this fits there, right? So technology came in as an enabler to make this decision today. Where we are sitting today, 1 in 5 add to carts that happen on our website happen through somebody who's either used the AR feature or the 3D feature to make that call, right? So one is this, I think technology has been an enabler to fast track this journey. Today, if you go to our studio where we sell furniture, like I talked about, we have about 200 plus studios in 100 plus cities. We don't sell any of the furniture pieces which are in the studio. The entire sale happens through the tab or the device in that store, where, because we believe that in a 6,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet, what is the maximum number of products you can show? And we have 1 lakh plus products to show, right? So the entire journey happens through the device where this entire discussion happens. So I believe, and the next projects we are working on is VR led, etc., right? So the idea is, yes, to answer you, content has been a strong enabler for commerce for us. And hence we today look at, if I am just pushing this ahead, is what data today also tells me is, if I have a banner on my website, which is got major yellow shades as against red shades, how does that move on click-throughs, right? So yes, I think we are, thanks to the power of technology today, have a lot of data points to take calls on what should be the next content that you create as well. Yeah.
I think I'll just add to what you said, very true. Because even we are in a similar space where it's In that sense, the services are high ticket value, not our products, but the services also today, a lot of people are more evolved, more aware, not evolved, but the consumer is more aware, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, for example, even 10 years back, all of the things that you're seeing today in the front of pack, niacinamide, salicylic acid, like these are things which would have been something some R&D scientist in a lab would have, been well versed with. Today, Gen Z will be able to tell you the difference between, 0.5 versus 1% versus 2% and how it's going to impact their skin. I think that's a huge difference in terms of how the consumer mindset has also evolved. And with that in mind, I think brands also got very cognizant, during the pandemic, during the lockdown, to kind of ensure that I think everyone has a very active D2C platform. Everyone is active on e-commerce, industries that you would have never imagined, like furniture, or, services. All of these had to kind of get onto the bandwagon because there was no choice. So what would have taken us 3 years to learn, we were forced to learn in maybe 3 months, 3 weeks, because there was no other option. Conversational AI became something that everyone had to kind of create bots. These were things that I remember during the lockdown. It was more like, let's figure it out. Who are the agencies? Who's doing what? It kind of became that kind of a hustle. Today, it's become more commonplace. Today, it's become a way of life, And even for us, for example, we have an AI skin assessment tool that's there on our D2C platform. It's also beautifully utilized within our clinic ecosystem, where our dermats are actually able to, like Naveen, you said, all of the selling is happening through the tab. So imagine you walk into the clinic, they take a picture, upload it, and then they're able to kind of more scientifically, technologically kind of tell you, exactly what your issues are and how it can be treated, because that's a power of technology. It can go much deeper than the human brain can. And I think, yeah, somewhere it is all marriage of online, offline, tech, human intervention. It's all kind of very beautifully coming together today for brands, like you said, agnostic of categories. Yeah.
My last question, and they've requested me to, that the time is over, and like I said, it's a very long session, is to you, Isha. I mean, and it's the most pressing matter today. I mean, the measurability of content, okay, and content projects, or branded content projects in that sense, whether it's short term or long term. Is the applicability of this left to like a gut or intuition?
Good one, because I think that we have sort of content, and people who use content has long sort of left the trajectory of gut. I think we all have already forwarded ourselves to gut plus. So there definitely is science, there definitely is method to the chaos, be it in terms of choosing the kind of content that you have to create, which marries with your brand ethos. Fair enough of testing is done by our brands. Most of the clients that we work with, there is enough pre-testing in terms of what collaboration to go for, what content creator to choose. Because I think, Abhishek, you mentioned that the brand values and the method and science still has to remain. Brand ambassadors could be content creators or vice versa. So that still stays. However, I would say that it's just become easier to sort of break the funnel into top funnel and bottom funnel. There is a long-term strategy where you would want to still continue to build reach and salience, your long-term campaigns that keep on running. You definitely have content as a tool to straight away impact imagery, which I think has become easier. So if you are a brand who wants to shift from a positive to a negative, or a negative to a positive trajectory, sorry, wrongly put, say example, Victoria's Secret, they use beautifully the power of content to have the challenges that they were facing from the body shaming piece, and they beautifully did that reverse around trend from content creation. We've seen Starbucks, they have a beautiful employees page, just to employees, what they're doing a day in a Starbucks employee, to just convey what they stand for. So the imagery positioning in terms of measurability has definitely changed in terms of what content can sort of bring to you. And there is also a fact that the funnel, which is the conversion from awareness to purchase, it would be very wrong to say that that has not shortened. In certain categories, on the basis of an Instagram post or a reel alike, consumers are tempted to engage and immediately purchase, which is they become aware about a brand. And that's for the pop culture categories. That's for emerging categories. Like, I'm a new mother, I have a 3-month-old daughter. And I think the number of brands that I would have purchased just because I saw an Instagram post versus what I knew about parenting, there's a huge difference. So I think in terms of measurement, there's enough science, there's enough method to it. And brands are moving towards checking in relevance, checking in the why, and most importantly, choosing that they don't go for content creation just for the heck of it, but more so because it's bringing in those imperative gains and moving the funnel from sales to purchase. And it's important in the customer journey, so to say.
Thank you. Thank you for all the inputs, all the learnings, all the insights. I would like to end this session by saying that the consumer is a teacher, okay, and the marketeers are students, and content is like the never-ending curriculum that you're learning. So thank you all. Thank you all for being here and giving your time.
Thank you so much. Well, on that note, if I may request Gaurav Dagaukar, the co-founder and CEO of Hooper, to kindly join us and help us in felicitating our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, a big, big round of applause for Mr. Gaurav. And we request our panelists to please step ahead and one by one felicitate all our esteemed panelists. First up, of course, starting with Madhakaran. Makaran, thank you so much for joining us on that. And if you can just pause. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about hashtag E4M Content Jam. Let the applause continue. Such an amazing curation. Of course, one by one, we'd like to felicitate all our panelists. Thank you so much, Aisha, for joining us. Thank you, Samyukta. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Naveen. Thank you so much, Amit. And if I could have the entire panel, please step forward for one group photograph together. Of course, Gaurav, we request you to please stay back and be a part of the panel photo. Ladies and gentlemen, as the entire panel comes together, let's once again applaud them and thank them for all their knowledge and experience they've shared today. Thank you so much. So on that note, and before we move ahead, I'd like to thank once again our co-gold partner, Hooper, India's #1 music licensing platform that's powering brands and creators across India with 100% copyright safe music. But ladies and gentlemen, also let's keep tweeting #E4M Content Jam and continue to keep the buzz alive. Now, the next session for me, the person who's joining us is somebody whom the entire industry looks up to. We're talking about an iconic personality joining who's going to be sharing his insights on why regional is a must-ride wave for every brand. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my honor to call upon the COO of Shemaru Me and Digital Businesses, Zubin Dubash. Let's give him a big, big round of applause as we request Zubin to join us. Check. Zubin, would you like to take this one?
Check. Yeah, this is working now. Okay, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zubin Dubash, and I lead the digital businesses of Shemaru Entertainment. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about regional, but before that, I'd just like to give you a little perspective of where the industry is going. I'm not going to show any slides, and I'm going to just talk off my head right now. So most of these numbers are very much fresh in my mind. In fact, that's what we live and breathe by every single day. So I'll talk a little bit about numbers. And I'll talk about the relevance of why regional is so important for all of us and where the entire digital video consumption is actually headed to. So let's take into perspective the entire infrastructure around how digital video is growing. So what does it take to actually grow that? One is internet penetration across India. Internet penetration across India right now is at about 900 million subscribers. That includes broadband, fixed wireless, and fixed line. And along with that, so once you have your internet connection, you obviously need devices to actually take you through the entire video experience. Now, how does that actually happen? Through smartphones, smart TVs, and devices that are video enabled. The smartphone penetration among this is about close to about 450, 500 million smartphones. And connected TVs are right now about a million odd, growing at a rapid rate, faster than any other of the devices category. And in the next 3 years, this is touted to grow about 10x. Now, these are numbers just to kind of give you a perspective of what the infrastructure is talking about in terms of growing video as a platform, as a consumption medium. Now, coming to where the consumption is actually happening, out of those 800-900 million internet users, 1 out of 2 are consuming video every month. So today you can safely say there are 500 million video consuming users in India. Within these 500 million video consuming users, we have close to about 100 million, 122 to be precise, million subscriptions on OTT. The rest you can safely assume are YouTube and other free AVOD platforms. And these 122 are divided into, let's say, 2 per household. So you're literally talking about 60 million households penetrated by an OTT. Now, over the last 5 years, India has come of age in the OTT space. This is reflective of a lot of content that we all see, a lot of OTT platforms that we all subscribe to. And today, if I had to ask you a question, and let's make this a little interactive, how many OTTs are actually present as we speak, are live as we speak? Would anyone want to guess? Sorry? 40. Would anyone like to take another guess? Sorry? More than that? 20? 40, okay, same 40. 100 plus. So actually the number is in that 70 range. Shimaru Me, which is our OTT, we launched in 2019. At that time, we were about the 40 or 42nd player. Okay, now why is this happening? This is happening because it's a similar trend of what happened in the television era. When TV launched many, many years ago, what was the main reason for us to watch TV? GEC, which is entertainment, sport, and news, right? So that was the core areas of what we wanted. And GEC at that time was purely Hindi. Okay, if you remember when satellite television came in, the first one was Z that came in. And at that point in time, it was that after Doordarshan, it was Z that broke out into lots of more channels that came in, but primarily Hindi. Now, much later is when everyone started seeing that there are special focus needs of channels that are needed. And within that, there could be affinity groups like devotional or kids channels, or the lowest hanging fruit, which is saying, why only Hindi? Let's give everyone a taste of TV, which is regional. Trust me, it's the same trend that's happening on the OTT space. The OTT space is right now 70, and precisely for this very reason, that everyone's coming up and carving out a niche, because there's enough and more consumers out there. All they need is a reason to consume content. The lowest hanging fruit in this era for the next 3 years or maybe more is going to be regional. We haven't yet broken out into affinity-based OTTs to that extent yet. That might be the next wave after the regional wave is done. But regional is definitely the next wave to grow. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Shimaru Me. We launched Shimaru Me around 2019. And our entire focus as an organization, Shimaru, as you know, is a 60-year young brand, if I may say so, because the very fact that I'm standing on the stage and talking about new age technology and content speaks about the fact that we always look at ourselves as learners every 5 years. We're looking at what the next frontier or the next device or the next technology that consumers are going to consume content on. And one fixed in that equation is our forte lies in content. We understand video content. We follow the consumer on every device that he goes to. So earlier, if it was YouTube some years ago, which we are still present on, to today, if it is OTT, and tomorrow, if he is consuming content in the metaverse, we will be present across the board because we are following the consumer in his journey of discovering content on any device, and we are very much device agnostic as an organization. So OTT, for that matter, came in 2019, and we said, let's open up our entire content catalog to the entire OTT world and to the customers out there. So today we have about 20,000 hours of content on Shimaru Me. You must download it at some point and try it out. It'll be a great experience for sure. The content spreads across Bollywood and a few regional content pieces, along with devotional, kids. And that's the entire spectrum of content that we've got on the platform. And we've got both a mix of AVOD as well as SVOD content. Now, the reason I'm telling you all of this is that as an organization, we said, let's start and give content to customers and let us see what's happening and where they are actually using all of this. And the first year and a half was very interesting. We learned a lot in terms of consumer behavior, understanding what a consumer is doing with our content. And I have to say this, that the biggest learning for us was that the regional consumption of all our content just blew our socks off. Regional consumption was significantly growing rapidly. We were seeing some amazing numbers on just regional content consumption. And moreover, we were seeing customers coming, and we have that search feature, right? So you search for content. The search gave us even more learnings on what they are finding on an OTT. That gave us, in the lockdown, in the peak of the lockdown itself in 2021, we launched our B2C foray. And we wanted to obviously see what is our forte into going into B2C. What do we stand for as an OTT? Our OTT, we said, is we want to go after a particular regional pocket. Why a particular regional pocket? Because we saw there's a genuine need. We went and spoke to customers in that particular market. We picked Gujarati. Now, today I can safely tell you that we are the largest and probably by far the largest OTT, in fact, the only OTT who's actually working on, can I take another 5? Sorry, I just had 10 minutes, so I was rambling, but they've given me another 5, so I'm going to take the 5. Okay. Okay, anyway, it's time up here. Okay. So on Gujarati, we said, let's go and find out what the customer really wants. And we found out that the customers are genuinely, there's a huge community out there who really enjoys Gujarati content. And for the first time in the entire history of OTT, and I can safely say this, that probably in the world, we're the only OTT who offers an SVOD subscription service with a promise, a guarantee. A guarantee is that we already have a library of Gujarati content, yes, on the platform. But beyond that, we also offer you one new piece of content every week, guaranteed. Okay. Now, what is this new content? It could be a blockbuster Gujarati film which has just launched in theaters. And 8 weeks after theatrical window, it lands direct to digital, or rather first on OTT, digital premiere on Shimaru Me. That's the first category of movies that we take on. We also commission a whole lot of web series. And we have nataks, which are plays in theater, which Gujaratis are very, very fond of. It's a big draw and it's a huge craze as far as the Gujarati community is concerned. Now, with this promise, and where did this promise come from? From the work and the discussions, the conversations we've been having with our customers. We saw that customers in general, and that's the normal trend in any OTT, in fact, even in normal TV, I would say, people are not platform loyal. They're not channel loyal. They are only content loyal. So today, if FIFA was not coming on Jio Cinema, you wouldn't have flocked Jio Cinema. You would have gone and flocked another channel on where it is, right? So that is, content is where people go. The channel or the destination is only the means to the end. And that's why people will always be content loyal and not platform loyal. And this is our endeavor to tell customers that we are not here in it for a one-off transaction with you. We want to build a relation with you. And here's our promise to you, saying, you be a partner of ours, be a member of our entire community, and we will take care of you, giving you one new piece of content every week. Now, the regional consumption on Gujarati, we've done so much of content right now. And we've seen some amazing traction happening right now. We've got millions of customers who are on the platform using our service and paying for our service. So it's a great reciprocation, or it's a great outcome of what our hypothesis was, to understand that customers really want to take this kind of content. Now, does it stop at Gujarati? Definitely not. We will definitely go to other regions as well. And regional is the way to grow, because you want to tell customers that I will master the art of finding out the right need of what content you need in that particular region and provide it to you, making that customer a real loyal audience to your platform. Now, how do we work? Apart from B2C, we work with a lot of brands, and that's probably relevant for this discussion. We work with tons of brands, about 100+ brands across various different sectors. We're completely sector agnostic because we follow one principle, which is the CAS principle, content as a solution. We tailor make solutions using content, which is our main forte, our OTT, and cater to your needs, whether it's a challenge you're facing or whether it's an objective you want to deliver. And I'll give you some examples. There's a handset manufacturer like an OEM, or a device or a connected TV manufacturer who wants to obviously up his sales. And there's such a clear synergy between saying smartphone equals content. Therefore, you need OTT to come on board, bundle it together, and there you can actually offer it to your customers as an advantage to take that particular product over another product. So it becomes a very good bundling opportunity there. Another bundling opportunity that we do is with ISPs. ISPs, the internet service providers, have this one challenge. They're saying most of our customers are on our base plan, which is only pure broadband. They don't make money on that. They acquire customers on that. This is the insight. So how do we actually tell them? So we say that, why don't you come on board, take an OTT, bring in OTT subscriptions, and use that to elevate or upgrade your customers from the 400 rupee plan to, let's say, the 1,000 rupee plan. The moment he goes to the 1,000 rupee plan, when you're buying those OTT subscriptions in bulk, you are actually seeing a lot of value created for the upgrade, and there's a lot of revenue and profitability that comes in because of that, and at a very marginal cost of incremental cost to buy those OTT packs from us. That's the second part. Another example is that there are a lot of apps, okay, who actually want to get more engagement on the platform. They're very transaction oriented. How many of us out here would have probably bought a ticket on ClearTrip or any of these travel apps and then gone back to the app for any reason? It's very rare that you'll go back to the app. You'll end up having your ticket on WhatsApp. You probably will have it on your email. You may not even need it at the airport. You'll go for your trip, you'll come back, and you may not even realize that you've not used the app after you booked it. So that was the only need. So we picked up this insight and told these customers and these clients of ours that, why don't we increase your time spent on the app? We can integrate Shamarumi into your app, and that way you can get video as a vector that your customers can use before your flight, after the flight, on the flight, trip. If it's a holiday package, you can say from check-in to check-out. There's so many innovative things you can do using content as the catalyst to build loyalty on your core product. So these are some of the solutions we've been doing. We've been seeing some amazing traction on that. One more I can tell you is an interesting one that we're working with with the entire hospitality fraternity. Here, the element is that they obviously give you Wi-Fi free, which is part of every room night, check-in to check-out, and nobody watches the television in the room, right? There are only probably a spa or a banquet just rolling continuously. So you don't end up seeing much. At best, you'll get to see 1 or 2 news channels. So there's no value of a television in a hotel room. What value will you get is if you can watch content from the start of your check-in to your checkout. So just in the same way as you do Wi-Fi, you do check-in to checkout, content on your phone or maybe on the hotel's chain's app. You can watch it out there itself and engage right through the hotel area while you're there itself. And these are some of the solutions we've come up. Just tells you a little bit about the CAS way of thinking that we do. Our consumption on regional, especially on Gujarati, has been growing at a breakneck speed. And we definitely see a lot of potential for even in-film placements to come in, especially for our web series. We've seen a lot of brands who come in and work with us on saying, we want dialogue integration, we want sponsorships outside the entire thing, ILUs. We do a lot of that as well. So just to sum it up, if I may, regional is definitely growing. And if you're missing out on that bandwagon, do look back, think a little bit, and bring it as part of your core strategy to address and target the next generation of digital consumers. Thank you. If there are any questions, I take probably 2 questions if there are.
Sure. If anyone has any question, just we'll take one in interest of time. Zubin, would that be fine?
Sorry?
Could we stick to one question?
Yeah, one is fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
one is
Could
okay.
we quickly give the mic back to the lady at the black? In the black, please. Mic. Sushant at the back. Straight. Yeah. Ma'am, a quick question, if you may, please. Thank you. Apologies, Zubin, on cutting on that.
No, it's okay.
Please.
Thank you so much for a lovely session. I work at MXPlayer, so really curious to know, what do you think about content commerce, like entertainment commerce?
You mean social commerce, right?
Influencers selling through videos.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that is the next best. I mean, the next big thing that will come about. So you will have right now influencers are doing exactly that. So you have video influencers talk about brands and talk about new products. You have a link below saying buy now, and you end up going and buying. So social commerce is a natural extension to video consumption, and I definitely see that that's a big draw. How it integrates with your there are 2 actually experiences here. One is your video consuming experience, for which you will go to your favorite video consuming app. And then is your shopping experience, for which you will go to your shopping app. Now, till these 2 don't talk to each other, or maybe till they finally talk to each other and give a seamless experience to customers, I think that will be the inflection point. There are some apps, I think Trell does this, where they have influencers who talk about something. If you like their product, you click below and it goes to the Trell store itself to buy, which is not as scalable as looking at something on a Shimaru Me, liking let's say a blazer of one of the stars, clicking on that and going to an Amazon to buy it. You know, that would be far more scalable, and it'll have far more traction as such. But yeah, to answer your question in a nutshell, definitely social commerce is the next big thing. YouTube themselves have acquired a company called SimSim, and they do exactly that. So eventually you'll see a very strong integration in the coming years or months on how that kind of plans out and pans out. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much.
If there are any more questions, I'm happy to take them offline. And there's also one of my colleagues here, Rikin, who can help you out if there are any questions. Thank you so much. And thanks for being a great audience.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Zubin, you said Nitin, right? Nitin is there. Rikin, could you just raise your hand so everyone can place you? Yeah, Rikin's at the back. So in case you'd like to connect. Zubin, thank you so much. I just requested, please be in the center as I request Isha Nagar, the Managing Director, NEPA, to kindly join us and help us in felicitating none other than, ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a big, big round of applause. Zubin Dabash. Thank you so much, Zubin, for joining us on this. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the content is only getting richer as we move ahead to the next one. What we're talking about is the future of content emerging technologies. And let me tell you, this panel discussion is going to be great as we're talking on the creation of the content as much about the creativity as it's about the automation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you may agree that emerging technologies will always have an impact on the way we create content. And AI has already penetrated the fields of content marketing, advertising to generate hyper-targeted, engaging content for customers by using certain algorithms and data analysis tools. From content creation to content marketing, synthetic media, if you may agree, is here to stay. As the stage is getting ready, I'd like to just acknowledge the ones who will be joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the Senior Vice President, Marketing, Brand Design, Strategy and Communication, Ultratech Cement. We have the brand head of Aegis Federal Life Insurance. We've got the co-founder and CEO of Hooper who will be joining. We've got the head marketing and corporate communications of Bharti AXA Life Insurance. We've got the chief marketing officer of Raymond Consumer Care. And of course, the one who's curating is going to be the head of mobile and emerging tech, Group M, who's going to be joining us. So ladies and gentlemen, as the stage is all set, it is now my cue to formally invite, with a big round of applause, all our panelists. First up, it's my honor, the Senior Vice President, Marketing, Brand Design, Strategy and Communication, Ultratech Cement, Chandan Kumar. Let's give him a warm round of applause. Chandan, a long walk for you from where you were to the stage, but thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Mr. Kumar a big round of applause. Thank you so much. With this, it's my honor to now call upon the brand head of Aegis Federal Life Insurance, Gagan Agarwal. Let's give Mr. Agarwal a warm round of applause. Thank you so much. If I could now have the co-founder and CEO of Hooper, Gaurav Dagaonkar, to kindly join us. Thank you so much, Gaurav. If I could now have the head marketing and corporate communications, Bharti AXA Life Insurance, Gitanjali Kothari. Thank you so much, Gitanjali, for joining us. If I could now have the Chief Marketing Officer, Raymond Consumer Care, Pooja Sehgal. Thank you so much, Pooja, for joining us. And of course, the head of mobile and emerging tech Group M, Neeraj Ruparel, being the session chair. Neeraj, over to you to curate this wonderful panel discussion forward. Could we have the volume on his mic, please? Yes.
Is it okay?
Yes, now.
Okay, super. So yeah, I mean, we thought content marketing and the technology interventions on content marketing in 2022 is almost like sky high. And technology interventions are firing up when it comes to all three formats of content creations, right? Whether it's text, voice, and video. And you can see that audio out there. And we know how to kind of create synthetic audio. So today's session, we thought we will talk about all possible ways in which content is getting created in today's time, right? Now look at formats like text. In the old days, people used to write a lot of scripts. And today we are talking about generative AI, which is kind of taking a leapfrog where text is used to create image content. Text is used to create video content. Audio is used to create video content, right? So there's loads of work which is happening in terms of the tech interventions which are coming
when it comes to creating content. So we thought we should just curate a panel and talk more about it. And before the panel, I was talking to one of my colleagues and he says that every time you run a panel, I feel that you should do a crash course for us before we get into the panel. And a lot of my clients also feel the same because the space has gone so sci-fi that every time I'm talking, they are just looking here and there and they're saying, yeah, this guy is making sense. But we still don't know what do we need to do, right? So what we did was we tried and we worked on a lot of interesting use cases when it comes to leveraging technology for content marketing. And today in this panel, we will try and see how many such renditions of content marketing which has gotten triggered through technology we can cover. So to begin with, I would like to invite Gagan from Aegis Federal Insurance. And we are super proud to have collaborated with him. And we did something really mesmerizing in the space of generative AI with him, which is like recreating the legendary cricketer, Sachin Tendulkar. And I'm sure all of you all must have seen hoardings of young Sachin. Let's do a show of hands. If you've seen a hoarding of young Sachin, I think media agency has done a fair job, right? Go to spend more money. Okay, so here in this campaign, let's just hear from Gagan. What was the thought? What was the task being assigned to us? And what did we create eventually? Yeah.
Thank you, Neeraj. So basically, I come from the life insurance industry. The communication in life insurance industry is more about creating fear in the mind of the consumers. So basically, everyone talks about like, what if you die? Who will take care of your family members? So you should buy life insurance. But we as a brand thought, why to create something negative in the mind of the consumers? But anyway, he's going to buy a product, your product, and you're anyway creating a negativity in his mind that you are going to die someday, and then you're going to get benefit from this product. Why don't you talk about positivity? How can we bring positivity into our communication in life insurance? So we came up with a thought where we say we are going to empower you to live the life and lifestyle of your choice. So basically what happens in life insurance, I will just divide it into two categories. Basically, one could be, you could call as a term plan. When a person is no more, his family member gets that money from the life insurance company. And the second is, we call it as an investment, wherein the person lives on. Let's say he has purchased a policy for 10 years and he is alive after 10 years, he will still get some money from the life insurance company, and then we call it as an investment plans. So that's why we said we want to empower you to live the lifestyle of your choice. So now we wanted to communicate this thought through our content. So how do we say you have to, so how do we communicate this to a thought? So basically what happens is in India, people are very concerned about their future, their own future, their children's future, what will happen in future. Like suppose if I'm 30-year-old now, I want to do some business when I'm 40 or when I cross 45. So I need certain amount of money where I can do some business with. Or if I have children which are 3-4 years old, I would want them to get the best education when they grow up. Like they would want to go to America or they would go to foreign country. And where would I get that money from? So there are plans available with life insurance companies which help you do this investment. So that was the thought behind the entire campaign. Now, how did this thought we want to communicate to the consumer? Then we thought, how can we use technology, wherein we approach Sachin. Sachin is a brand ambassador. We wanted to we want to communicate that future, you have to become future fearless. You should not fear from the future. If you have planned properly, like we do a lot of things. If we plan that tomorrow I'm going to do this, if you have planned it properly, you will be able to execute what you want to do next day. Similarly, if you have planned your finances in a proper way, so you don't have to fear your future. So that's how we created the Young Sachin campaign, the film. But the challenge there, the biggest challenge was when we are working on the content. Of course, VML Vayana WPP Group helped us create that film for us. The challenge was we did not had any images or videos of young Sachin. So we always, because when Sachin was young, he did not capture any photographs or videos. His family members didn't do that. So how do we do that? How do we create a young Sachin in the film where the young Sachin is telling the audience that you should not fear the future? Like how I did not fear, like when I say Sachin did not fear the future when he was young. He wanted to become a cricketer. He never thought about his finances, how he will take care of his finances, and he became a famous cricketer, as you all know. Then we took the help of technology, which is AI and deepfake. We took Sachin's current photograph, and then we used technology and created young Sachin from those technology. So that's how the entire film was made.
That was, wasn't that super? So if I were to just explain what we did technically was, we shot with a young boy. We had about 5 odd pixelated old school picture of Sachin Tendulkar. So that was being morphed on top of this young boy. We shot with Sachin. So we used the same lip sync. We de-aged his voice. So a 50-year-old Sachin, how he sounds now, started sounding like a 16-year-old boy. And what was Sachin's reaction when he saw that?
First saw, he was very excited. He couldn't believe that. He said, "Arey, I'm exactly looking like this when I was young. I don't have any photograph to prove you that this is how I look." And then second, little apprehensive, he said, "What if somebody misuses this technology and creates my video and use it for some wrong purposes?" We said, "Don't worry, we are not going to do it. We are not going to share it." So it was both, he was happy and he was excited and a little apprehensive also.
So now a show of hands, how many of you must have heard about this campaign? It's still the same? So the media needs to really work hard, yeah? All right, so moving on, and since we are talking about a BFSI category, now when you see BFSI as a category and then Pooja represents CPG here, so what happens on CPG category is the DMPs and the data science is not such a big mandate, but with BFSI, it becomes part of your compliance, right? The first thing you do is to know your customers, you know their PII details, and you need to reach out to them as per the compliance. If they transact, you send them messaging out there. Your CRMs are like all-time sci-fi. Your communications are going through WhatsApp and other channels, right? So what has been the content strategy for you at Bharti AXA all the while? And how do you think this is evolving now in times to come using the technology levers?
Hi, everyone. So I've been with the group for nearly over 10 years and therefore the industry. I have literally seen a sea change the way it has panned out in the last decade. With the advent, of course, of WhatsApp coming in, earlier it was all traditional mediums of email or SMS primarily. As email or open rates all the way from say 25% dropping to 7%. Google breaking the inbox to from nothing to a primary, secondary promotion. So we've seen all of those challenges, right? And therefore you keep your eyes and ears open to look for new possibilities. Right now, the biggest two areas where we are focusing so far as our content is concerned, of course, there is BAU. You will continue to sell, you will have to continue to serve. However, where is your growth engine coming in from? It's coming in from youngsters or it is coming from Bharat. Yeah, you need to penetrate into tier 2, tier 3. Clearly because Delhi, Bombays of the world are saturated. They have a plethora of options. They have enough and more people chasing them already. So therefore, tier 2, tier 3. These guys are not your English first audience. They are people who need to be told through a human intervention. Artificial perhaps is the way to go because you cannot have those many lakhs of people deployed considering cost constraints. And you have a younger set altogether who doesn't like human intervention so much, is happy to engage with avatars. It's happy to have some sort of a voice telling them what to do, but they in some sense like to do things by themselves. So these are two areas where we're thinking that how in the next 2-3 years are we really going to do business in a manner which is going to be cost sensible for us as well. We're able to scale, we're able to communicate to all of our audiences by being relevant as well. So largely these.
And even when you look at the kind of search queries which are happening and how consumer is shifting and the kind of content they are seeking now, the input channels are constantly evolving. If you see the Google stack right now, they added, it was predominantly text-based search. Then came voice search. So assistant got integrated onto the search bar. Earlier this year, there was Google Lens, which got integrated. So if you log into Bharti AXA or any of your sites, you will also see a lot of image searches which are happening, right? So clearly there's a need of content to be created. One of the reasons Google invoked podcast as part of the search results was that because when people are firing up commands, what do you give them back? The algorithm is going to search for a relevant output. If input has come in on voice, they would look at an audio or a voice output to be given back, right? So there's a constant content which is getting created, whether it's text, voice, or image or video eventually, right? And the good part is that you need to ensure that it goes regional and it goes deep in that conversation point, right? In fact, government in one of the programs are spending about 100 crore in a 40-day project called NLT, Natural Language Transmission Mission, if you guys are aware. Today, when we are creating campaigns, say with Sachin, you record a campaign in Hindi, right? And you can then use the same rendition in Kannada and Karnataka. Because I saw Gigesh, so I thought I'll say Karnataka. So this is how the language transcoding is happening in modern day. So Microsoft Cognitive Speech Stack, or what we used for the Shah Rukh Khan, not just a Cadbury ad. We collaborated with a company called Respeecher based in Ukraine. They created 40 different voice models of Shah Rukh Khan, because India would have a lot of dictions out there, right? Small retailers you are dealing with. So obviously you need to have that level of synthetic voice which is getting created out there. So there's a constant content which needs to be constantly created in all three formats. And that cannot be done manually now. And you'll need synthetic engines to fire up to create those kind of content, right? And on this topic, I would love to bring in Gaurav, who's doing some brilliant work in terms of using AI and music. So as I mentioned about an ad creative, which we use today, if you want to go like really regional in India, and look at podcast in India, is like PwC numbers are about 93 million and below. My sense would be 70, 80 million active users on podcast. But if you were to say an outlier is PM Ke Man Ki Baat, the podcast platform, which has touched about 600 million people in India, right? Which is available in 19 languages. So you talk about going vernacular, voice and telephony, and you are suddenly creating a scalable use case out there. Now imagine content creation in 19 languages. Either you sit and create in individual languages, or you use transcoding engine to create that and load it up on the live server where people can be offered content basis the market they are coming in from, right? Exactly similar is the scenario when it comes to music. And Ajay is like completely involved now. Okay, super. Let's hear it from Gaurav in terms of how music is getting transcoded. And there's this beautiful campaign you were discussing about Mahindra, right? The sound map. We will talk more on that, but let's hear it from him on the technology stack which he's working on.
Absolutely, Neeraj. I think, when it comes to, say, video marketing or mobile marketing, video forms the crux today of communication everywhere. And 60 to 70% of videos out there require music. And consistently, when we've met brands over the last year and a half, the requirement has been that how can we go local and how can we go hyper local? One option is, of course, language. But even at a fundamental music level, it is music instruments that also create a mood. Yeah. And let's not forget that today, marketers have barely 6 seconds to make an impact, right? In 6 seconds, if you've not really caught your consumer, there's a high chance that he or she may just click on the next button. So how does your video really open, and if let's say you're a jewelry brand that's targeting a consumer in Bengal, right? Typically, we've seen multiple brands get celebrities or film stars that represent a certain region. Similarly, we are working on an algorithm where can you have, if it's, let's say a brand mnemonic or a certain tune, can we have the same melody being played in, say, a Dvitara if it's in Bengali? Can it be a Tumbi if it's played in Punjab? The reason why we are seeing music as perhaps, the last bastion that's left to be conquered when it comes to generative AI is because there is a sense of aesthetic beauty that, also needs to be translated in music, which is especially in vocal, it's very difficult to get. But we're getting success in the space of beds, as we were talking. There are chord progressions that can be imitated in different instruments. So a lot of that progress is going on. Parallelly, I still feel that even when it comes to, let's say, exciting experiments that are being tried out, like you record a certain vocal in a language. Let's say if I were to record an instrument, I'll since we're from music, I'll give a real example so that possibly you all can understand it. But let's say if I record a tune, da 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 da. Now let's say if I were to create a music score around it, sa ga re ga ga pa re ga. These are the notes. Now let's say if I transcribe this and I create a set of different lyrics, can I do a singing voice synthesis around it? Yeah. Like let's say the same can be tu kahe to jaan de du, or if it's Marathi, he khare ki swapna maze, anything can happen, right? And you can have multiple variations coming out. In vocal, we have found it slightly challenging. It's still, I would say, at least for us, it's a little far away. But in the case of music instruments, we are getting good success. So possibly this can also be expanded. Like, let's say you in the current ad space, you create a jingle in Hindi and you want to create, say, 14 language versions. You end up hiring 14 different singers, or you hire one singer, you pay them, 50%, you pay them per edit, you get a voice translator, supervisor, studio. A lot of that can go. Yeah. And we've tried these experiments where the same track is being used to create multiple tracks. It's very, very exciting. I would say music is still getting there. Like, unlike image and text, where there's OpenAI, there is, Dolly, there is a stability diffusion. In music, there are these platform layers that need to come in. But once that happens, you'll see in 2023 and 24, the floodgates are going to open for music.
So as he speaks, Chandan is getting some ideas on implementing this for his brand. So by the way, Chandan runs a very, very interesting content format called Baat Ghar Ki. We call it, and now the India calls it Wikipedia of home building. And not just India, but this has become like a global case now. It won Smarties X, if I'm not wrong, only cement brand, very boring category. But he's created some content out of it, which is actually taking KKT head on, I would say, in terms of the usage which is picked up, not just for urban India, but also for rural India. So let's hear it from Chandan in terms of how this property was being curated. What was the brand thought, and how does he intend to use all what Gaurav just mentioned?
So I will start by dispelling the myth that cement is boring. You ask this anybody who is building a house by putting his lifetime saving. Okay, it's a extremely high involvement category for somebody who's building a home.
It's boring for us.
The second piece is, we are driven by proximity bias. We don't understand the category unless we are a category user. Okay. India is a country of 1.4 billion pop. Okay. And 1.2 billion people live in that part of the world where people build a home, don't buy an apartment. Okay. 70%, more than 70% of our business comes from B2C, right? Which is people who buy our brand to build their own home with their lifetime of saving and earning, and even future income for that matter. Okay. So it's a B2C category as such. It's not a B2B, which is what we believe by looking at infrastructure projects and metros and flyovers in cities like Mumbai or Delhi. Okay. So fundamentally, we started with the consumers, and we were trying to figure out that one, involvement. Yes, no, we found involvement is pretty high. Reason pretty simple. It's a irreversible decision. Home is built only once in life. So you get only one chance to get it right. If things go wrong, then it's either life-threatening or it is very expensive mistake in that sense. Second piece, 99% of Indians will build only one home in their lifetime. Okay, 1% do own multiple homes, build multiple homes. So, and since there is no past experience of building a home, okay, aspirations are sky high, knowledge is zero, trust deficit is pretty high. Those who have the knowledge, people don't trust them, which is masons, contractors. We call home builders as IHBs, which is individual home builders. So IHBs don't trust them easily. Okay, stakes are pretty high, both from financial perspective, from emotional perspective, because home is considered to be your badge of competence in that sense. And social perspective, because everybody is judging you, looking at you, because you are moving from being a kirayadar to a makan malik, so that transition in the society is huge. So this knowledge and trust deficit basically was bothering IHB intenders who wanted to build a home, didn't had a reliable source of information, how to build, what to do, where to look for unbiased information, right? And this is where we found the sweet spot that, instead of in the category you see most of the brands doing is selling your brand, we said we will solve for the problem that the consumer is really worried about. Okay. And that led to the genesis of Baat Ghar Ki, which is a huge content platform where we are helping and enabling the people to find answers for the questions that is bothering them in their home building journey, right? It ranges from figuring how to plan, how to budget, how to shortlist, say, team of experts, how to get the blueprint or the layout done, to selection of material as to which material would be better for their particular project. So this journey started in 2018, and we started off with a couple of videos which were done in vernacular basis the search results that we saw, because we found that people are already searching for certain information. So we had some input data, translated that into videos, went live. Then we realized that we need languages, because not everyone was comfortable engaging in only two languages, which is English and Hindi, right? Especially because a lot of our customers come from rural tier 1, tier 2. They're more comfortable talking to a brand which talks in their language, So that then added to our to-do list, saying that now we need vernacular content. So from video, we went to vernacular. Content were translated into first 9 languages and then into 12 languages. Okay. Then again, we hit a roadblock. We realized that in rural, TV penetration is in our focus markets, which is largely Hindi heartland. We realized that TV penetration is 30%, 35% odd. Okay. So our communication, our content is not reaching them. Smartphone penetration was also too low, and therefore rich media is not reaching. So how do we solve this? And that is when we said voice is the next big leg for us. We leveraged feature phones, which Neeraj calls with great pride dumb phones. Okay. So we reached out to the audience through feature phone. We translated all the content into voice content, Baat Ghar Ki as voice assets. Okay, we hired known celebs like Ravi Kishan, Raju Srivastav to make the content even more interesting and exciting for the audience in the rural markets. Okay, and through that we were able to generate an incremental reach, delta reach, for the first time for the brand to the tune of 50 million, because these were the people whom the brand had never reached at all. Right.
Also added a conversational AI like through
Yes.
WhatsApp and
and then as we moved forward, then we had chatbots on our website. We also have now chatbot on WhatsApp, and we are also delivering a lot of content through programmatic, whether it is voice, whether it is our AVs. Okay, so this has been the journey, and I think the key was that if we were very clear that this is an interesting space. There is a valuable problem to be solved for the brand, right? And once you have the right insight, content is possible.
All right, so that was a good one. So let's just change gears and move on to the new space, the Gen Z space, as we call it, the Web3 and the metaverse space. And let's bring in Pooja here. Pooja has done some fascinating work. At least she's getting geared with all her brands at Raymond Consumer. She's done some amazing use cases on NFTs and metaverse. So would love to see the content play out there, because that requires a completely different DNA out there to create content. Because I would say the future of content and all these immersive virtual worlds would be AI mascots, right? Those digital humans would be the new age AI mascots who are going to be moving into these virtual worlds like Roblox and Decentraland. There's tons of work which is happening in these spaces, and they will drive conversations with Gen Z out there, right? So a lot of brands are now experimenting and creating experiences. I would let you do the talking now.
So Neeraj might find my brand also boring. I'll give an example of Kama Sutra.
That's a very interesting brand.
Okay. So yeah, Kama Sutra is also, something that has not been in the news for a long period of time. Everyone still remembers it from a very old ad. And of course, conversations have really changed. Digital has really come in. So what we did, first thing we did 3 things, and we are on the way of,
PG for Kama Sutra.
So, it's definitely what you said. It includes you, but it's 18 to 30 years of age. So that's what you're really talking to. But of course, you're pretty Gen Z, so that's why you're also included. So of course, it's about the younger TG, and it's also this brand is very old, and you have a very new competition that's very strong. So we said, how do we engage with them in the entire consumer journey? So the first thing we did was we tied up with Bobble. And we use a lot of voice AI. So, Bobble came to us and they said that these are the conversations around sex that are happening a lot on WhatsApp. And whatever we say about social media, we know WhatsApp is the largest, media of interaction. So depending on the conversations that were happening and the large keywords, we started basically integrating our conversation and our, talks about sex, and we made some stickers. So as we know, people love to pass stickers and share content at that point of time. So we made sure organically we integrated very seamlessly into those conversations. And, we had huge number of shares. So when people are talking about sex, love, which happens a lot more than we think it does, our sticker basically popped up and people then really shared it. And we got almost like 6 million reach and almost 1 million shares. So people really participated usually in it. And then what we did like a stage 2, we took all the, conversation stickers that were the most popular. We actually minted that into NFT. And we actually sold that and we dedicated the money to Pathfinders, which is an NGO. So basically it was a holistic campaign and, it's won a lot of awards because for the first time, in a very fun way, we tried to normalize, these kind of conversations. Then really using a lot of this, data that we did, we started doing a chatbot. Because again, the most search word is sex, but it's not really talked about. So we took all the search queries and we worked with Gupshup and Madison and we made a chatbot into different arenas where people could actually reach out to us. And we call it the Love Sutra. So right up to like getting tips on how to woo your partner to basically bedroom, tips. And of course, there has to be a commercial angle to it. So, linking it up to the website and Amazon. And engagement rate was great. So, we got a 3% engagement rate and huge amount of click through because at the end of the day, us marketers always have to have a ROI angle in whatever we do. And now lastly, what we are doing is we're really going into the metaverse. So like, just what Neeraj said that how do we now really make it immersive? So we come from the land of Kama Sutra. We have these great statues. We have this great, book about it. And it's not only about sex. It's a lot to do with social etiquette. It's a lot to do with, wooing your person. It's a lot to also be a better, person. So we're actually now creating an entire metaverse. We've called it, of course, not very creative, Kamaverse, where people can come and actually integrate and interact with avatars and, also, take selfies and mint their own NFTs. And also the brand purpose, I would still say is a part of it, which is really enabling people to, have the confidence to make love like never before and really giving them the confidence and the safety angle that as a brand, we want to touch with our, target audience. So integrating really brand purpose with technology, I think is the way to go. And
so I think this entire space of conversation marketing, which you mentioned, there are billions of messages which get invoked every morning, right? So instead, for our dads and all, they send good morning every day. If you were to just replace that with a branded good morning or a branded thumbs up, the regular thumbs up becomes a brand thumbs up. It's amazing to ride on that wave. So that was a brilliant use case.
I think I was quite surprised at, when Bobble came to us and the success of the campaign. So I think voice AI, and I think we in India love to use voice, and we love to use the WhatsApp. So it's got a great way to drive brand engagement and
if you go to pick up an Alexa stat which says there are 1 million people who want to marry Alexa.
Okay.
I mean, that's serious, right? That's
I think Jeff Bezos will be happy with that.
That's the love for a machine. But Amazon won't be okay with that. All right, let's just shift gears and we have about 10 minutes to wrap up our conversation. Let's just take a view on how the content tech story would evolve in the 5G era, right? We were just talking about Alexa getting so much love, 1 million people proposing to Alexa. Now we are talking about digital humans and the AI mascots are going to be more visible in that sense, right? And they are going to look into your eyes. So imagine connected packaging as we do it right now, which is those QR codes or augmented reality packs you scan and you move on to a different destination. Over there, the brand mascots can be invoked. The modern day banking assistants, which we have right now, you launch an Axis Bank app and you will have a Dyna bot coming in, right? Instead of that, you will have AI mascots or digital humans who are going to drive all these stickier conversations. And they can look into your eyes, they can sense your, what you call expressions, and they can relay a conversation or a content back. So let's hear it from all of you. Let's start with Gitanjali first, or maybe let's start with Gagan first in terms of how, and Gagan is already on the roadmap way ahead of the curve, one of our most maverick marketers who's now launching Sachinverse after young Sachin. So Sachin moves into metaverse, meta humans are going to get created, which is what all the top celebs are doing today. All of them are undergoing complete transformation of creating their own meta humans. I have my own as well, which does a lot of our mundane work. Let's hear it from Gagan in terms of how the future will shape up on content and tech in the 5G era?
I believe that digital human is going to be a boon for at least for life insurance industry and as well as other industries as well. As I had explained earlier, see, life insurance is a very difficult product to sell. You have to first explain the benefits of the product to a consumer, and that takes time. It cannot happen in a 30-second video or a 60-second video even. So digital human can help the industry. So let's say if someone comes on our website, we have certain videos, we have certain content, but that's not, there's no connect, there's no human connect. If you have a digital human there explaining about the product, the benefits, and then taking questions and answering the queries, it's really going to help the industry. Similarly, as Neeraj mentioned, the Sachin verse, how we are taking help of the technology to resolve this challenge. So right now we have taken help of creative content. We are making a film where we are again showing that Sachin is going into a metaverse kind of an environment. We are calling it as a Sachin verse. And that environment changes differently. That there are various situations. I'll give you one situation, like he goes into the metaverse and he's in a cricket field. And the players are playing cricket in a very different manner, not in a regular cricket. Similarly, next he goes to a school and then he sees kids learning in a very different manner, not through normal books or laptop or computers. You see a lot of high-tech things happening there. So the message we are trying to pass here, again, the thought here is the future is going to be different. If you plan now, if you plan for your future now, whatever happens in the future, you will be safe. You will be financially strong because you would have planned ahead of the future. So that's the message. With the help of the technology, we are trying to pass through the Sachin verse. So Sachin is telling everyone that future is going to change. You might not know what will happen 10 years down the line, but prepare yourself financially now.
So as he said, we have created a digital human called Kalpana, which is internal to us, and we use her for a lot of our workshops and keynote address and stuff like that. In fact, she was also part of one of the panel I did. There was Pepsi, Nestle, Perfetti, and the fourth panelist was Kalpana. So what's your take on a digital human called Bharti?
We've got one called Uttara.
Okay.
See, I still believe that all of us on the panel have chatbots, right? A lot of you all sitting out here also have chatbots. How are you going to set it apart? What are you going to do with it is really what is going to help you take a leapfrog into the future. We did something exciting, in fact, in the last 6 months. Now, extending the conversation from Gagan, ours is the boring category, by the way, not cement and not even Ravens. So it is, you're just swamped with numbers. You do not know, you are never going to be using a life insurance product. It'll be a claimant after you die who's going to be using it. So you do not know what should you buy. And everybody is throwing in their suggestions basis the amount of commission that they'll make. But ultimately, things need to be simplified for somebody who's buying it. Now, what is it that can be simplified from a 40-50 page document that eventually comes to you? We did something very recently, and upon scanning a QR code is sent to you along with your policy. Upon scanning the QR, a simple 2-pager opens. I'm not saying that this 2-pager is also going to simplify everything out of the 50-pager, but at least it'll tell you what will it take for you to continue to stay invested. What are the features? And the next piece, we're not even going to be dependent on people to read those 2 pages. Ultimately, all of this is going to be voice translated, because I don't think people have that kind of patience also or wherewithal to understand what these 2 pages also mean out of the 40 pages. So one will have to continue to simplify things, and content will have to then move into that direction. No matter what you do with your chatbot, all of us have it.
So already as we speak, you go to SBI Mutual Fund, there are sites which are talking to you, right? These are voice-enabled sites which are already available. You launch any BFSI application, you will have video bots popping in. So no sooner with 5G coming in, all the tech stack which were getting suppressed because of bandwidth are going to get live. And digital humans are going to make inroads into those applications. Are going to make those conversations more stickier. So spot on there. Let's move on to Chandan, and quickly, maybe in 60 seconds, we'll try. With Chandan, it's not easy, but we'll try in 60 seconds to conclude how Baat Ghar Ki would transform in the 5G era, especially with PM Modi talking about Ghar Ghar Mein 5G. It'll go to villages and stuff, right? There are 100 5G test labs which they are working on. So obviously the bandwidth issue is going to get resolved. The device penetration is going up already in rural India. Those 1,500 rupee smart feature phones, no more dumb phones, but smart feature phones. So how would Baat Ghar Ki as a platform evolve with technology in the 5G era?
So I think as the computing power of the devices go up and the bandwidth that the telecom providers have to offer, that expands, we will be able to not just deliver rich content, but I think a lot of innovation can also kick in. Just for example, right now, if you look at our chatbots, most of the brands, right, you will have some caricature over there, which is engaging with the audience through text or through voice. Okay. Now, if you look at human mind, we are wired to see patterns and recognize faces. Okay. And the moment we see a face, it builds familiarity, it creates a bit more confidence, and we get drawn into the conversation. So I think with data, right, with technology, we can create digital avatars, right? Most importantly, those brands which have a distinct brand asset as a character, okay, can definitely bring alive those distinct brand assets in these conversations, because it reinforces the brand, and it also further makes the conversation far more authentic. Okay, so imagine WhatsApp chatbot where I have my distinct brand asset, which is the engineer, okay, talking to the consumer, taking queries and responding in real time, solving queries in real time basis. Now that is what people would be looking forward for, also, because the moment we disconnect ourselves from text and we move to audio and we move to conversation, there is a possibility of getting deeper into the conversation with the audience.
Absolutely.
Right.
Let me bring in like the point which Gagan mentioned in terms of Sachin saying, wouldn't that be misused? So let's just hear Gaurav's point of view in terms of ethics in AI, how things are going to pan out.
Oh, I think that is a very important point, because, and for us at Hooper, that's pretty much the cornerstone or the fundamental of whatever we believe in. I think the platform came about because of the fact that brands were using music, not just brands, but even content creators in their vlogs, in their podcasts, metaverse, influencer activities. Brands used to use tracks, and later they used to get a takedown or a lawsuit, and they used to say, "Ki isme paise kyun dene?" But you're paying every influencer, you're not paying the song. So ethics is seriously important. On the platform today, we've got more than 10,000 tracks, which are songs, which are completely copyright safe. So, when brands use it for a live commerce project, it's copyright safe. They use it for a digital ad, it's copyright safe. It's extremely important to sort of first do that. At the same time, we use copyright safe and not royalty free, because we pay our musicians royalty. It's very important to understand that at the end of the spectrum, be it generative AI or even the kind of music you're using, is a human being, either who's created the music or on whose IP or whose thought process the data was trained and modeled. Ye bhulna nahi chahiye, because a lot of people forget this and think that it's machines that actually developed, but the root and the genesis came from somebody. Yeah. And if today, let's say somebody plays a sitar and there are 100 derivatives created out of it, there should be some royalty paid. So I think that's where the ethics come into picture, and that misuse of the content should not happen.
There is scaring me. We have exactly 60 seconds, and I would invite Pooja to round up the conversation in terms of the technology play in the 5G era or CPG.
Okay, so I think everyone said it really well, and I think whatever's happening is making everything accessible to the to the last mile, and actually simplifying everything. So as she was talking, I was remembering in beauty also, what really made beauty accessible to everyone is even L'Oreal, where I work, they started calling themselves a beauty tech company. Yeah. And basically how tech actually made beauty accessible and simplified. Yeah. Because I think that's the role of technology, to simplify and still connect with everyone.
Beauty Plus made everyone beautiful.
Yes. Are you looking for a compliment? No, yeah. So I think that's what is really done. And I think that's what the technology is really doing, right? It's really democratizing. So for all of us who were born in a much earlier era where we saw things were very elite, access was quite limited. It's amazing to see how technology is, bringing everyone accessible, and also helping brands reach the last mile. And I think that's what's really leading to the immense potential what we are seeing out there in India. So exciting times ahead.
Absolutely. So let me just round up this panel. This was a super insightful one with perspectives from BFSI, CPG, and a platform partner who is building for the future, building for the 5G era and the AI era. So with that, I would just conclude and say that content has to get driven through new technology interventions. And all of us as marketers will have to keep looking for newer avenues to kind of embed content and create renditions such that it penetrates basis the consumer shift which is happening, right? So it's an era which we are moving into, which is going to be full of test and learn. But while you test a particular technology loaded with content, you need to be very sure in terms of what is the outcome you're looking at. So very sure in terms of what do you want to learn with that test and learn exercise, right? It should be a meaningful campaign which is creative and content led. With that, we would call it the end. Thank you so much, guys. It was fabulous interacting with you all. Thank you so much, audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neeraj and the entire panel. Let's give them a big, big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. On that note, if I may request Nazia Alvi Rahman, the editor of Exchange Media, to kindly join us and help us in felicitating. Let's give our... Can we have volume on his mic, please? Neeraj is still... It's okay, Neeraj. We'll get that sorted for you. Can we have volume on his mic? Yeah, Neeraj, can you talk?
No, I'm just saying technology is so much closer to us. As we run this panel, there's speech to text AI which kicks in, and there are social media posts which are getting designed.
Right.
If you get that tech wrong, then all what we said gets misinterpreted out there, right? So you need to get the stack right. You need to evaluate correct partners to build that journey. So it's around us. AI is already kicking in as we run this panel, right?
Yeah.
More on this as we keep doing this content day with E4M and other forums. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Neeraj. On that note, if I could have the felicitations to please start. Could we have Nazia first up? If you could start with Neeraj. Let's start from the right to left, if that's okay. Yes, perfect. And we'd love a photo up of both of you, please. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chandan, for joining us. Thank you so much, Gagan. Okay, thank you so much, Gagan, for your insights. Thank you so much, Gaurav, for joining us on this panel. Thank you, Gitanjali. Thank you so much, Pooja. And if I could have the entire panel together, yeah. Neeraj, you'll have to come here, yeah?
Thank you so much, Bhavna. Like a 10th panel I'm doing where you are the MC. Thank you so much. You do a fab job.
Thank you so much. Thank you on that. On that note, if I could just have the entire panel please together. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a big, big round of applause. What an excellent curation and moderation. Of course, I'd like to say that coming up next is Geetika Mehta, who's the Managing Director of Hershey India. So it's going to be a fabulous session, let me tell you, which is going to, of course, wrap up with our amazing content jam. Let's give our panel a big, big round of applause. Thank you so much. So ladies and gentlemen, for our final session, and let me tell you, we've been saving the best for the last. Yes, we're talking about celebrating togetherness with the brand Hershey, for which, of course, we are privileged that we have someone who's got 20 years of business leadership experience, successful delivery of results across different business contexts. We're talking about building and nurturing small businesses. We're talking about leading growth across large businesses. And of course, the delivery market share gains, driving profitability and turnaround. Somebody who's galvanized large teams across common objectives and collaborated across various markets. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about South Asia, be it India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Southeast Asia, Thailand, Latin America, Brazil, Africa. With your round of applause as we have the stage now ready, and I don't want to come between you and the conversation. Could we have the honor of calling upon the Managing Director, Hershey India, Geetika Mehta, to kindly join us along with Mr. Naval Ahuja, co-founder, Exchange for Media Group. Let's give both of them a big, big round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Ahuja. Thank you, Ms. Mehta, for joining us. Over to you. Could we have on his mic?
Thank you, Bhavna. That's working. Thank you. Thank you for those of you who've stayed back. I'm sure more people will come back in. The conference has been on for a while. Thank you, Geetika, for joining us for this session, the last session before we get into the award ceremony. As you know already, Bhavna has done the introduction. Geetika heads the Hershey's business in India. She's spent a lifetime in the consumer FMCG space. She's been a lifer at Unilever. Before we just came in, I was narrating an anecdote to Geetika. This year in Diwali, I was in Delhi with family, and I noticed something, though it's a small sample size, only me, but a lot of the sort of chocolate boxes that were coming in were Hershey's. Unlike what I've seen in the past, so many other companies, people use Cadbury's. So I noticed a lot of Hershey's, and it still is kind of ingrained in my mind. I remember telling my wife that something has changed. So Geetika, one, congratulations on that, and two, what have you guys done to change that in the last 12, 18 months?
Thanks, Naval, for the opportunity first. And maybe just to quickly give a sense for people who have stayed back. I know it's the last session between now and awards. So I think Hershey's, as you may know, globally is a chocolate company. Yeah, but in India, it actually started off with a JV. Then we about 10 years ago kind of took over on our own. And it's a chocolate syrup company, frankly, in India. It's only in 2020 that we have gone national with our chocolates. And that's how nascent India's Hershey chocolate journey is. And from there to kind of make the progress that you're saying, and I can assure you, you're not the only sample size. We've had many people really talking about the kind of movement that Hershey Chocolates has made. We see that in our shares. We are now the third largest chocolate brand in premium chocolates in India. And like I said, literally launched a few years ago. So what has changed for us? Frankly, I think one is priority. Yeah, just what is the prioritization? And we've put execution as the top of our prioritization, because you could have great strategy, but unless you really put it down, and execute it till the last mile, it doesn't really come through. So that's the one that has resulted in us gaining chocolate share, so for example, in gifting, gift boxes this time, we would have easily been, the kind of growth rates we saw must be about 4x or 5x that the category saw. So you're really pushing the envelope there. And I think the other thing, and I'm referring now to the session and why we're here, is the content. Yeah, because that is really the heart of it. And if the session before us also kind of mentioned, you could have brilliant, teams, you could have brilliant communication channels, but unless there is deep, real, meaningful content for consumers, it will fall flat. So I think those two would be what I would say has been the differentiators.
Fantastic. I think, this entire day is about conversations around content, and content is at the heart of what we consume on digital platforms these days. One of the things marketers have sort of realized in the last few years, and that's the other thing we were talking about, that 20 years back, companies used to do what was then known as, advertiser-funded programs on television. There was no other way, and then gradually the narrative started getting pushed into programming. There was a famous case when Maruti launched, car on a very, very popular television show. We've come a long way from then. Today, digital platforms allow such a wide sort of gamut of, content seeding activities. Every brand is kind of trying to push their own narrative. In this journey of sort of content curation and content seeding, what is also happening is a lot of discoveries being made, right? You said you launched the chocolates business 2020, roughly 2 years back. I'm sure you've done a lot of experimentation, made a lot of mistakes, done content. Some of it has worked, others have not worked. So while we'll come to the, content seeding part later, the first part is curation of the content itself. So what are your key learnings? Because you've not just worked in this current category you are in, you worked across many categories in your journey at Unilever as well. So what have you been your key learnings when it comes to curating content to influencer customer habits?
So I think for me, the most important thing here would be consumer connectedness. Yeah. And that's something at Hershey we take very seriously. Every person in Hershey has a minimum hours of consumer connects that they should do, literally in order to be, to be able opening their mouth in a conference room. You have that gut that you've built around what will resonate with consumers, and I think that's important because for me that's really where it all kind of summarizes. And like you said, experiments. Frankly, there are no failures. I think they are great learning steps. We've had many things we tried, didn't work as well, but we've used them to kind of make it even better in the in the future. Just to give an example, this year, Valentine's Day. So normally it's an occasion which is very well entrenched by our competitors, and we said, but why should Valentine's Day be just for your beloved? It could be for yours forever. Could be your mother, could be your brother, could be your sister. And therefore, with that, we did a very interesting tie-up with butterflies. We did, with Geo Savan, a bit of a playlist that you could make for, your, forever. And therefore, I think just different things so that we stand out, we resonate with what the pulse of the consumer is, and then we kind of address that. So I think for me, that would be the most important lesson I have learned in the past 20 years, which is stay close to consumers, and they will reward you with kind of their purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a fundamental, concept for, any marketer in the room. That reminds me, of course, the brand thrives so much on, occasion-based marketing. And, I think the time has come to do, self-gifting on Valentine's. We all remember the girl who announced a few months back she's marrying herself. So I think Valentine's Day is also kind of headed in that direction. It increases usage and gives you another opportunity to kind of promote the product. Let me come back to, slightly larger umbrella now, Geetika. You've been a marketer all your life. You run a large business in India for Hershey's now. When you sit down with your marketing team, and we've spoken about the digital journey, how it has evolved last 15 years, so many learnings within the digital sort of marketing, digital advertising space, consumer reach out. When you sit down with your marketing team and you look at, money being spent on digital platforms, what are the key KPI metrics that, you start with? Because, I think digital is one platform where all sorts of KPIs have floated around in the last 20 years. Many have been junked. New ones are, floated around every day. I was reading a piece a couple of days back on the Harvard Business Review, which spoke about how many marketers, at least in the more evolved Western economies, are kind of, moving money back to traditional media. I mean, though that's not happening in India yet, unlikely to happen anytime soon. But when you talk to your marketing team, what are the key metrics that you talk about?
Yeah. So I think there is no exact answer to this, to be honest. And, I realize a lot of people are experimenting with what is the right measure of success. What I can tell you is there is a digital first approach that we employ. Yeah. So what, we earmark a certain amount of money, of course, behind digital, not just core. And we do see that there are a lot of consumers who we call cord cutters. Basically they don't have cable TV anymore, so they've cut the cord. And they are the ones who you want to reach through digital first kind of campaigns, right? So, we of course measure the engagement, the views, the likes, the usual ones. We also see what is our share of voice in the digital medium compared to who we would want to be kind of pegged against. So several measures that we see. I think the other thing we do differently is not just stick to more traditional moments of advertising around, chocolate. So for example, chocolates, if some of you are familiar with the category, it's a Diwali, Rakhi gifting kind of occasion that has been built. And we've said we will do something absolutely different. We'll find more moments to connect where our consumers are. So Women's Day, yeah. And we did this very interesting campaign this year called Hershey. So our brand has, an invisible her and she. in the brand name of Hershey's. And therefore we said we will make the invisible and make it visible. So we've really celebrated sheroes, from all walks of life who are not celebrated otherwise, so they are great in their own field, could be philanthropy, could be sports, could be photography, and we've put them on our packs. Yeah, and this is now the second year we have done it. We will do it again next year and hopefully forever, which is how do we make them really get the spotlight and make them visible and the work that they should speak for themselves. So we're not sticking only to a Rakhi Diwali. Yeah. Similarly, Halloween. Yeah. And some of you, none of you actually look like you have kids. You look very young. But if you've seen it around now, that's a thing that is really gaining, with a lot of these Gen Z millennial crowds, this trick and treating has really got a lot of traction. And therefore, we don't want to be, we want to be the leaders in that space. We almost had an 80% share of voice in terms of Halloween this year. Yeah, so first time we said, like make your Halloween Hershey-licious, and how do you really celebrate Halloween? So I think that's for me an important element of, so it's not just going digital, but also digital at a place where the consumers are not even expecting it. It's out of the blue.
Absolutely. Finding the right fit, the time, the place. And the messaging, of course, is as important. Let me come back to the content piece that we've been talking about. And, one of the very key aspects of curating and then pushing out content is also the use of, known faces. It could be celebrities, it could be influencers. Just last week, we released a report on the influencer marketing ecosystem. And influencers now come in all shapes and sizes, as opposed to a couple of decades back where they used to be Bollywood listers. Now you have Bollywood A-listers going down to what we have come to be known as micro and nano influencers, right? And most of the brands are working with the entire gamut of influencers from top to bottom. You're already working with some of the A-listers, and I'm sure you also work with a lot of influencers down the funnel. And influencer marketing has become a very, very critical piece in this entire sort of jigsaw. What have been your kind of challenges in terms of, or learnings, if I can ask that, on the influencer marketing thing, because that directly plugs into then how you are seeding the content and where?
Yeah. So influencers, indeed, for us, we have a full funnel. So, macro, micro, nano, all of them. And we have very A-listers, so John Abraham has been on SoFit for so long, Shraddha Kapoor on Kisses, Tapsi on our exotic dark portfolio. So we do have very top-notch celebrities who really get us the reach. And we have also influencers who, so for Rakhi this time, we got, an interesting influencer. For Valentine, we got this couple. So, we do different spaces. I think the learning or the challenges is, when you take a celeb, you kind of check, what they stand for, you do a lot of due diligence. But the moment you go to influencers, there's so many, and there is only so much that you can kind of curate their tone of voice beyond a point. So I think there is a certain level of putting it out there that you have to live with, knowing that the influencer may interpret it in their own way and form, and being comfortable with that, knowing that you're kind of sharing your voice in different platforms in a way that could be different from how you would have intended it to be. So I think that's, for me, an interesting part of working with influencers. But that is also what makes it real and relatable, because otherwise, and we've all done scripted films. It's a line that the celeb will speak, and that's really scripted to the last pause. And I think with influencers, you make it real, you make it more tangible, you make it more closer to the consumers. And hopefully then you kind of pick the right kind of influencers who then carry forward your message in a very relatable, real way.
Yeah, and I think one of the sort of risks that comes with the job is the kind of mistakes that are made. It is very tempting to hire a well-known influencer and start putting content out without kind of really paying enough attention to the fit with the brand, whether the timing is right or whatever else is going on in the environment. Tell us, so what are the kind of pitfalls, or what are the mistakes that you think sometimes brand makes when it comes to use of influencers per se?
So that's what I was referring. So yeah, so that's the one that I was referring to, saying, you kind of you give them the authority to talk on your brand's behalf somewhere. And the team does a lot of due diligence as much as they can. But this can go wrong. Sometimes these influencers in their personal life may be doing something which is maybe not in sync with what your brand messaging or thinking is. But I think that's an overarching thing for us. Thankfully, all our influencer bets have kind of paid off. They do have a very clear space that we would like for them to reach out, a kind of target group that they already speak with, which is resonant with the target that we want to reach. So I think for us, frankly, all our experiments have worked.
I think we need a break here. No? It's getting into, I think maybe it's got discharged. Yeah, I think with the sort of space growing so fast and so many companies experimenting, naturally a lot of learnings will come to the table in terms of how influencers are going to be used and what is the way forward. Let me step back a little bit and go back to the sort of digital journey. One of the things that has happened as digital has added so much complexity to a marketer's job. Philip Kotler famously spoke about the 4 P's of marketing, and today those 4 P's have completely changed meaning. The P stand for performance, for privacy, for permission, and so many other things. 2 things have become very critical on when you go online to push your narrative. One is how can you personalize, right? Now that challenge is different for every category. For example, BFSI as a category needs to be far more personalized as compared to perhaps the category you are in. But having said that, because digital allows you that opportunity, there is want for every marketer to make the message personal as much as possible. But the flip side of that is intruding into privacy, right? And it's a fine line that every brand is walking every day. How do you kind of look at that challenge and sort of find the right path?
So I think personalization, again, super critical. And I gave the example of the Hershey campaign that we did. What we did was on our packs, we put the picture of the, the person we wanted to celebrate, but we also put a QR code. And if you were to put it, you could celebrate your own personal Shiro. So that's how you personalize it. So while we have these 4, 6, 8 people that we could put on our packs, how can you celebrate the Shiros in your lives? And we had almost, I think, more than 11,000 people who kind of sent then messages to their personal Shiros. So that's the personal touch that you can bring in. Again, a space that we continue experimenting in. We are now doing, the metaverse conversation earlier in the panel. We're now doing Hersheyverse. Yeah, so it's not yet official, so maybe I shouldn't be telling you, but yeah, you'll hear about it next week. And, again, we're trying to kind of merge together the physical and the digital world for the consumer, and lots of discounts, lots of interaction, lots of interface with them to see how can we make it more personal, how do we bring it closer home for them. So yeah, it's something we continue.
And as a category, chocolates, it naturally lends itself to a concept like metaverse. Let me, again, you've been a marketer for a long time. Let me ask you, every brand, I saw a report GroupM released this week, which said 48% of advertising money in India this year will go on digital. There are naturally categories which are doing even more than 48%. That's how the average has been arrived at. In this entire din of digital, somewhere agencies as well as brand managers have lost sight of what's happening in the TV and the other legacy ecosystem. What is your view on how this debate is eventually going to be settled, say 2 years out? What is the value that medium like TV still has in the lives of FMCG marketers, right? While digital delivers so many benefits we've all discovered, TV continues to have a role. What is that role you think it will sort of keep having?
So I think it's personally too early to write the obituary for TV. Yeah. And the truth is our consumers are across the spectrum, across the, the LSM pyramid or socioeconomic classes. And there are those who you would need to reach through more mass, routes like TV. So at least at Hershey, how we do it is we decide which brand needs to go on TV, depending on its awareness, reach, tasks, and how much therefore would be spent on TV, how much would be spent on digital. And then there are brands which do only digital, more niche, more very very segmented profile, so we create the lookalikes and we get to consumers through that. So my personal belief, TV and digital are here to stay. In fact, if anything, it is becoming dual screens, more screens, so how do we build that interaction between TV and digital is how we should look at our thinking rather than saying it's TV or digital. It's going to be both. At least that's how I see it. And we need to be able to just bring them together in a manner that is cohesive and continues to build for the.
Yeah, I think TV plus digital is important. Very importantly, how you're using digital as well as TV both. It's just not about, doing a mass spray of, spending money on digital.
The objectives of the brand. It could be different for every brand. Even within, like I said, within Hershey, we don't have the same approach for all our brands. We have different approaches of what is right for that particular brand in that particular campaign. So sometimes one brand can be making a core TV advertisement and a digital, like Hershey Kisses, for example, core TV, but the Hershey-licious Halloween was only digital.
Right.
So.
Yeah, some of the tactical campaigns obviously will go on digital. You might not have the bandwidth, time, or the resources to, mount them on a TV campaign. Let me come back to, what we are discussing today, which is content. And, for every brand, it's become very tempting to curate your own narrative instead of, going the traditional advertising way, which is riding on a narrative that already exists. But, in your 20 years of journey as a marketer, what have you discovered in terms of, consumer tastes or consumer pushback? Because, if a consumer has, dozens of content narratives thrown out at her every day, right? The sort of the ability to absorb them also goes down, and there is a pushback. And that's again a very fine line, because you don't want to overdo the content piece, and sometimes you got caught in your own trap. You like the narrative and you keep pushing out without really understanding the kind of results that are coming out. So when it comes to creating your own content using celebrities or influencers to put it across various platforms, what is the right approach to follow in terms of the balance between curating your own content versus riding on existing content or doing it with other partners?
So I think firstly, indeed, the human mind can only process so much, right? So beyond a point, it does, if you don't manage to say it, your message in a clean, easy to process manner, a consumer wouldn't get it. So with you on that, I think for us, it is really about what is the best way to partner and where do we come in kind of curate our own content. I'll give you the example of JioSaavn, playlists for Valentine. So it's something that they are doing, and how do we partner with them in that journey? We're doing something similar, with Tinder as well. It depends on the channel where you believe there is something that they can do, something that we need to curate specifically. And to be honest, that we look at it in every space differently. And I mean, I don't know how to give a clearer answer than that on this one.
Understood. I see the time is already up. Let me talk about a larger organizational issue. And, for most companies, people is a very important talent. And one of the key areas where companies in India as well as globally have been focusing about is diversity in the workspace. We know that Hershey's has been kind of at the forefront in pushing that narrative, making it a sort of equal workspace. What are the steps that the company has taken, for example, especially in your tenure, in that direction?
So I think diversity is super critical. In fact, if I look at our leadership team, it's 43% is women. And that's really what we aspire to be. We want to be an equal opportunities employer, right? So what we insist is every single opening that opens up is an equal slate. You have 50% women and 50% men, and then may the best talent win. So there is no mandates on hiring, but there are mandates on ensuring that is equal opportunities being offered. The other things we do is really how do we make it more easier for women to work, right? So sales especially is an area where women find it tough. I mean, I have done sales in Unilever, and I can assure you I had troubles using, there was no bathroom to use, like literally, let's be honest, right? So we've tied up with Vulu. It's this app that tells you where is the cleanest, closest bathroom. And, we've given it to all our sales women in the sales force. So, of course, the daycare benefit. So a lot of these facilitating benefits, which a few years ago were not considered important or weren't even thought about, is something that we've recently done now. We've seen an increase in our diversity ratios, nowhere close to the 50-50 we would like for it to be. But we continue making progress, even in our factories. I mean, we have a factory in Bhopal, and traditionally not as safe as we would like for it to be. And we are exploring how can we have, buses with CCTV cameras to take them from the village? How do we kind of go to the village, speak with them to make it legit to come to a factory and work? So lots of work in the pipeline, which has been done in the last year. Lots more to do, but I think we've made tremendous progress, and that's an area I think is important because, at the end of the day, we are serving an equal population consumer. There are 50-50 men and women, and therefore we need the same kind of diversity in our teams at home, so that we can kind of make them to the consumers out there.
Absolutely. I think one of the key, while we talk about GDP numbers and growth figures in monetary terms, one of the key aspects for India as a country to look at is participation of women in the workforce, and how that is shaping up, especially in corporate India at the top level, because there are so many sectors where significant progress has been made in the last few years, but there's still a long way to go. You come from the Unilever ecosystem, which is really a sort of, one can say, a leader in this space. With that, thank you so much, Geetika. I see we've run out of time. Happy to take any audience questions if there are any. Yes, Dharmendra, there's a mic. Can we get a mic there?
Or you could speak up and maybe I can try and listen to you.
Gitanjali, the mic is just a moment. Yeah.
How does Hershey's stay relevant at a time when most people don't care about their health, but they want to show that they do on social media?
So I personally, firstly, we are about moments of togetherness. We are about indulgence, but we're also better for you. Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. It depends on which side of the spectrum that you stand on what do you want to project. We have offerings for all sorts. We have the 30% less sugar offerings for those who want to be seen and projected in a certain manner. We have dark chocolates. So I personally think our portfolio is relevant for all. And I mean, I have at least a chocolate a day. So as part of a healthy lifestyle, I think it's absolutely permissible indulgence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geetika. Do we have any further questions? Can we get the mic passed? Yeah, thank you. Could we get the volume on that mic, please?
Check. Hi, Geetika, you spoke about Halloween, and that's a very interesting point that I gauged from the entire conversation. I was just thinking that, why do you think that Indian brands are embracing American holidays, and how is it working for you guys, especially in the FMCG category? If you could just throw some light on it, because recently Black Friday was there, and Halloween, Thanksgiving, there are so many festivals that Indian brands and Indian consumers are celebrating these days. So what is your take on that?
So I think Indians love celebrations. We just need an excuse to find a moment to, so I mean, and if you're in Mumbai and in a multicultural environment, you celebrate everything from Christmas to Navratri to, I mean, you would do everything, right? And the way I look at it is Halloween is yet another way. I don't think people understand the concept behind it. It's just a great way to kind of give a fun day for your kids. And that's how I see it. And therefore, it's important for us to be where the consumers are. And the consumers seem to be wanting to celebrate every single little thing. Like I said, Mother's Day, Women's Day, a lot of these occasions are mini celebrations. And we would like, as Hershey's, to partner in those celebrations.
Basic human psychology, we want to celebrate every day, right?
Yeah.
So the more occasions you can find, the better it is. And especially we Indians, I mean, we have enough festivals already, but we'd like them to be doubled up.
Very well put. Do we have further questions? Sure, Nazia. Could we have the mic quickly? I know you're very close to the stage, but we would want everyone to hear your question. Thank you, Nazia.
Gitika, Hershey's like for most of us is like chocolates that our relatives abroad used to bring for us for many years. And when you were talking about, how you've been positioning it, you are targeting Halloween, Women's Day, and not Diwali and Rakhi. How do you think it'll help you reach masses? Because it's still a kind of very upmarket niche kind of thing, which is just landed in India. So how will you eventually, what's your plan to eventually make it a very mass kind of a brand?
Yeah. So firstly, we do, of course we do Diwali and Rakhi, and this gifting season, like I said, we did, 4 or 5 times that of the category in Diwali. So we're doing this and more. We're not restricting ourselves to only a few occasions. And to the point, absolutely, Hershey for me has also been, my cousin from the US would bring bagfuls of that. And that's been how, the equity of the brand is built as this premium international brand. But what we do is we offer products which are Indian. So, we don't import from the US and sell. We make our own products here in India to suit the Indian palate so that it is not alien. If you've ever had the Hershey's International compared to this, the Indian Hershey's have a little bit more sweet because, that's how the Indians like their chocolates. So I think it's not a lift and shift kind of thing. It's really doing it right for India, participating in every festival of India and more, and really making this entire thing celebrating togetherness is how we actually call it.
Thank you. We have one more question, Mr. Ahuja. Would that be fine?
Please.
Yeah. Could we quickly get the mic passed at the back? Thank you. And I must say, Gitika, I love Hershey's unsweetened hot cocoa powder. It's still one of the favorites, and especially with the Christmas time coming in, I think it's just the apt one.
Hello,
Quick question.
Nitika. This is Shafali. It's been a wonderful conversation. Just wanted to understand, as you rightly said, Hershey's is the moment of celebrations, kind of a message which you guys carry. Now, during COVID times, of course, there has been a lot of sadness or tough time that people have been going through. So did you have any learnings during that phase with regards to the marketing message or the content message or the strategies that you utilize during that time versus prior to COVID and post-COVID? Any insights you have which you could share with us?
So I think COVID for us, of course, for everybody was a big, big shake-up. Right. And I'm not going to talk about the supply chain and all of that, sales, etc. I'm going to talk about, therefore, from a marketing lens. What we did was this happy at home campaign, which was saying, you're going to be at home. How do you make that more fun? So how could we come up with more baking recipes, the hot, unsweetened hot cocoa or, hot chocolate or, syrups or spreads for different occasions. And, we really celebrated saying you're at home. Think of it as a blessing in disguise and your ability to really create that moment for your immediate family. And now as COVID is opening up, we're doing Happy at Home Part 2, which is saying, how do we use the same recipes, but make it more, what can you put in your kids' tiffin now that schools have opened up? And how can you make the same great recipe in less than 10 minutes now that you are getting back to being time-starved again? So I think it's really about, of course, we kind of managed to do great in COVID also. The categories were such that they lent itself to a lot of in-home consumption. But even beyond, we continue to grow because we are able to morph our marketing to fit with saying now people are getting back and how can we have easy but still delicious recipes for them.
So can we say that personalization is the cue here because you are trying to being empathetic to people and personalizing the product as the need arises? That helped you? Yeah.
So we do that, absolutely. In fact, I mean, you could opt in, we could give you a recipe a day, if you were so wanting, or you could even look for saying, I have these ingredients at home, what can I do? So you can really engage in a very personal manner with this, but miles to go. I think we can just make it absolutely a lot more than we have done thus far.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Anything that brings happiness and sweetness in life is
Sweetest
most
flame.
welcome. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gitika, for a wonderful session.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you. You've been a wonderful audience. I look forward to meeting some of you during the award ceremony.
Sure. And on that sweet note, let's applaud them, ladies and gentlemen. The conversations struck so beautifully. And of course, we'd love to felicitate Geetika, Ms. Mehta, thank you so much for your valuable time. Let the applause continue, ladies and gentlemen. Hashtag E4M Content Jam. And once again, a big thank you to Mr. Ahuja, Ms. Mehta for joining us on that front. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we come to the end to our Content Jam, which is our, of course, the marketing conference, the content marketing conference. Now we're going to be reconvening for the much awaited ICMA. I'd request all of you, whilst as we get this entire arena ready, to please step out, re-register, and let's get pepped and ready for the much awaited awards. Thank you all for being such a great audience, and we'll see you at ICMA. Thank you.